Thank you very much. I think I'm appealing to this August Assembly to just read the background, the introduction, and the recommendations to save us time, because we've all had the privilege to have read the report beforehand, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
In fact, actually, I thought of that. That was why I was consulting that maybe we have a summarized version. But some other honorable members may feel otherwise, that because it is important, they may want to go through it. I don't know whether everybody had an opportunity. The soft copies were sent yesterday, and because we couldn't print the whole document, they were sent to your emails, and the hard copies deposited in your pigeonholes this morning. Can we take it as read and then we go straight to the recommendations, or we allow him to let him summarize? He can summarize the main points. Let him summarize. I think it's relevant that he summarizes before going to the conclusions. Please, if you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And that's exactly what my plan was, to read the summary. But there are certain things that I really need to read out for people to hear. But that's exactly what my plan actually is. And because I wanted to give the background so that you understand really how we handle the situation and what the committee actually did in terms of getting down to this document. But I'm not going to read everything but the relevant areas. Thank you. Now, the methodology we used basically was internal committee meetings. And also we made consultations with the ministries, departments, and agencies. We also made consultations with the local government authorities and non-stakeholders, and we also made site visits. That's exactly how we did. Now, during our first meeting, Honorable Speaker, that's where we really put down on paper, really how do we want to handle the situation in terms of the oversight. And the first thing we did was to select the vice chair of the committee. That was not actually done prior to that. And then the committee unanimously agreed to make Honorable Dawda Kausu as the vice chair of the committee. Now, during the consultations with the ministries, that was the first time we met with the ministries that are Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, the Interior, Justice, Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, and Employment. And we met all of them actually the first time. And the objective basically was to make exhaustive consultation with relevant stakeholders so that by the time the committee roll out to the field, it would be in a position to make assessment and deduce conclusions from the submissions made on the extent of the implementation or other issues relating to the emergencies. Our findings during the first meeting. The committee's findings are wide and varied and could be summarized according to each ministry or department, which I'm not going to go into detail, but it's part of the document. But in general, what we realized was there was a lack of proper coordination and communication among the ministries and the agencies and the departments. While we meet with the ministries responsible in terms of, some of them were really expecting that the regulations that were affirmed, they were expecting that the Minister of Justice should give them those regulations. But upon further consultation, there was realized this was gazetted, and it was the responsibility of every stakeholder to ensure that you get your own copy so that you can do what you needed to do. And that's the first thing we realized. Now, during the consultation also, we realized a few areas, for example, specifically on the state-owned enterprises. We've realized that with the state-owned enterprises, particularly GIA and the Gambia Civil Aviation, because they depend a lot on the, on these international airlines, and we've detected that they had the potential to lose up to 1 billion if the situation actually continues, because they depend a lot on Hajj operations, they depend a lot on the tourism sector for their revenues. So those two state-owned agencies, really, they have the potential to lose up to 1 billion, according to from the meeting with them. Now, for the security services, Honorable Speaker. Now, the Inspector General Police, as well as the immigration, they're really very clear. Really, they're up for the job. They want to do the job, but they were also skeptical in the sense that their men do not have the proper personal protective equipment at the time of reporting. They do not have. But we are made to understand that some have already been given to them. But I think one can easily see that why the regulations were not actually enforced 100%. Because of the skeptics, like you don't have any facial mask, you don't have any gloves to be able to do those things. Now, we also met with the religious leaders. We met with the Gambia Christian Council, as well as the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, really on how they live in these regulations. And again, they were really very clear that congregations, they advise their congregation not to really gather together in one particular place. And they are supporting the government in those areas, but they thought before those regulations actually were in place, maybe consultation with them would have been better so that they can give more ideas to the government in terms of the regulations that affect the opening of mosques and churches. Honorable Speaker, we also had consultation with the National Health Emergency Committee. With the objective of establishing National Health Public Health Emergency Committee is to coordinate a robust resource mobilization campaign for health emergency. Now, we met with them, and then they've really gave us a good grasp of really what they're trying to do. And but one area that needs to be really very clear here is this. What they're telling us is if the situation of the country continues, like in terms of social distance, if that is not fixed right now, the country has the potential to be infected with 181,000 cases, and that was really very clear. And they used a particular model from the WHO to come up with those numbers. Now, with those serious infections, for example, 20% of these people are expected to require medical attention, and 5% of these people may die. So, essentially, they are telling us really, in terms of social distancing, in terms of the regulations or the advices from WHO, we really need to take it very seriously. Now, with the local government authorities, Honorable Speaker, the local government authorities indicated that the enforcement of the emergency powers regulations would continue to pose huge challenges as the councils that are part of the key implementing authorities have neither been consulted nor served copies of regulations to comprehend their contents. Again, as I said earlier, the expectation was for the Minister of Justice to provide them with copies, but again, these were informed, they were gazetted, they were expected to get their own copies or through their online ministry. However, there was a consensus that among the authorities, the local government authorities, the rural councils, like the Kuntaure area councils, the Basa area councils, they would be most affected because they depend a lot in terms on lumos to generate revenue. Observation. The committee observed that the government has recently announced some amendments to the emergency powers regulations. Some of these include those amendments that were made and adopted at the National Assembly plenary, as well as new insertions. The Minister of Justice noted and assured the committee that it would have to seek the affirmation of the National Assembly on these revised ones. Honorable Speaker, from there we went on a countrywide tour. The committee visited and inspected 2 ferry terminals, Banjul and Bara, 12 health facilities, including the Edward Francis Teaching Hospital, the Serekunda General Hospital, the Serekunda Clinic. We also visited Buyam Hospital. We also visited Farafenye, Kaur, Basse, and Bansang, to name a few. During the course of our intervention also, we've also visited 2 police stations. That is the Bara Police Station and the Olundum Police Station, just to see exactly how are they managing the enforcement of these regulations that are within their mandate. Honorable Speaker, to move right along, we've also visited border posts as well across the country. Now, one of the key things that we realized, for example, on the health, on the part of the health area, in terms of the clinics and the hospitals, it is generally seen that to enter in the hospital, you really have to do the basic things, which is to wash your hands. Also, they have a team in each of those places, except the one for Serekunda Clinic, where you are actually seen first in terms of washing your hands, in terms of checking your temperature, and in terms of separating you from the rest of the visitors, in terms of, in case your temperature is really very high. So we have seen that in most of the hospitals and clinics we have visited. In fact, we have also seen that there are formed committees, for example, in all of those hospitals and clinics, special committees that would handle COVID-19. And we were particularly impressed by the one in Buyam, for example. That actually had a team A and team B, and those 2 teams, they separated them completely to serve, or in case the other team is infected, the other team actually can come out and continue to work, which we thought is really very commendable from the team in Buyam. From Bansang, yeah. Buyam also had the same thing. Buyam. So Bansang and Buyam, they have those 2 teams. Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, just a second, one by one. Or can I just allow Newmi? Are you okay? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Honorable Speaker, continuing right along, what we've also noticed in the hospitals and the clinics that we visited, that's the lack of personal protective equipment. They lack those, and at the time of our visit, they didn't have enough. Some of them they have some, but it wasn't enough, and that's what some of the complaints we actually received. Now, Honorable Speaker, again, still talking about the hospitals and the clinics in the country, and on those we visited. Most of them also have holding centers. The borders as well, they also have holding centers. And these are the ones that were built during the time of Ebola. And they're using them, but we've realized that not all of them are well equipped in terms of water and in terms of electricity, and those things, they really need to be looked at properly. Now, we continued also, and they visited some fish landing sites, and which we're going to highlight in the report and the Gambia Port Authority as well. Now, to look at the finances, for example, during our consultation with the Minister of Health and the Minister of Finance, we have realized that a good amount of money, which is 500 million, was put aside for the fight on this COVID-19. It is important to note that, Honorable Speaker, that almost $720 million actually will be spent in terms of medical equipment, personal protective equipment, and other things related to health. Remember, the President of the Republic put aside 500 million towards the fight of COVID-19. And the Minister of Finance was also able to put together another $10 million from the World Bank. 5 million direct from the World Bank, and the other 5 million came from another project from the World Bank, making 10 million, and the government of the Gambia added another 100 million, which equates to $2 million. So essentially, $12 million have been spent, which we are yet to get the breakdown. We requested for the breakdown on each item, but we are clearly told that the World Bank towards the procurement of ambulances and other medical equipment from Turkey, because the total bill of the Ministry of Health for that purpose was 12 million, and that 12 million was already done. $10 million, which is equivalent to almost like, which is equivalent to 1 billion, and additional $100 million came from the government of the Gambia. So essentially, you can say that 85% of the monies that we receive, in terms of from the World Bank, in terms of from the government of the Gambia, more than 85% of the money has been spent on medical equipment and personal protection equipment, including ambulances. And I wanted this figure to be really very clear. Now, right now, I'll just go straight to our findings and the recommendations. Because I think by now you have a gist of really what we are doing. But I want to highlight one particular area, which is under the Ministry of Tourism and Culture. The Ministry of Tourism indicated that the fate of the country's tourism sector depends on what obtains in the source or Western countries, where tourists would come from after the pandemic. Now, if you look at the appendix, I've given you some other additional document on appendix, especially the one that's called COVID-19 in the Gambia, a rapid assessment of the impact of COVID-19 on the tourism and the related sectors, done by the Gambia Bureau of Statistics. If you look at the impact, according to the study by the GBOS, the closure of business operations will invariably have various forms of impact on the establishment, most notably economic losses. It was the interest of the data collection to have a forecast of the financial losses that the establishment envisages to incur during the month of April to June. An overall amount of 6.7 billion was reported by all establishments as forecast of losses during the period under review. This is about the tourism sector. The reason why I'm bringing this up, Honorable Speaker, is the fact that 30% of our GDP actually comes from the tourism industry. And if they don't do well, which means nationally, our revenue would really be affected. Now, with this figure, 6.7 billion on the tourism sector, 6.4 billion is the amount that's related to hotels. Then you have the lodges, the eco lodges as well as the restaurants. They have about 33.8 million losses, beach bars, tour operators, etc., etc. So in total, the estimated losses from the tourism sector is about 6.4 billion. Honorable Speaker, the Gambia tourism and hospitality allied sectors also, they've also indicated the same figures here. Now, in terms of really asking for assistance from the government. Now, their contribution to the revenue base of the government is really very clear. In terms of corporate tax, in terms of pay, in terms of VAT, municipal rates, they contribute a total of 1.4 Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Now, just to clearly indicate that that's the contribution of the tourism sector, 1.4 billion in terms of revenue, to the cost of the government of the Gambia. But in totality, according to these two studies we have, they have a potential to lose almost 6.7 billion, and they clearly need some assistance from the government of the Gambia. Now, to touch on the last one, which is about the procurement. The Gambia Public Procurement, in our engagement with them, they've indicated that the act that they have, it does not make provision for a clear-cut procedure as regards to procurement during emergencies. It says the law only caters for direct or single sourcing, which it said has implications as it could lead to overpricing of invoices. The authority noted that since the act is not explicit, there is bound to be discretionary actions which could be counterproductive. The GPPA acknowledged that the response to COVID-19 has to compromise certain key principles of procurement, which under normal circumstances must have to be adhered to at all times, and this includes value for money, fair opportunity, transparency, accountability, and following the due process. When such compromises are being made, the authority was concerned that it could as well lead to unreported procurement. The authority reported that it is currently working with the World Bank to digitize its operations procedure, developing an e-procurement system through which all the procurement processes would be done. Honorable Speaker, before I come to the conclusion, due to time, we were unable to complete certain areas, which is we wanted to really meet with MOPSI, which is the Minister of Basic Education. We wanted to meet also with the Minister of Higher Education, NACA, and again to meet with the Minister of Trade for the third time, if I may say. But due to time, we didn't have really, we couldn't meet with them to give you more information about the education, part of the education. In conclusion, it has been observed that social physical distancing, as directed by the regulation, is generally not observed at markets, beaches, and other public places across the country. This can either be attributed to a general disregard by the members of the public and due to weak or non-enforcement by the enforcement authorities, the councils, and the security sector. It was also observed that the borders are porous and in some instances, like Panchang, they are open. That's where Halifa Mbowe is from. It was also observed that the borders are porous and as such people continue to illegally enter the country without notice and being quarantined. Recommendations. Now, in the recommendations, Honorable Speaker, we separated based on ministry, but you're going to see that sometimes two ministries may actually have the same issue. First, that's the Minister of Justice. The committee hereby represents the following recommendations by sector. A regulation to be in place to make an offense for anyone, transport driver or compound owner who assists any unauthorized traveler to enter the country or harbors any visitor or guest from without notifying the health authorities. We want to have a specific regulation for that. Number two, a regulation making it an offense for anybody who enters the country and refuses to be quarantined or refuses to report to appropriate health authorities for mandatory quarantine. All such illegal entrants shall bear the cost associated with their quarantine. Security. The closure of all borders must be fully enforced with the deployment of the armed and security forces. The army should be used to reinforce the regional tasks in the implementation of the regulations. The Minister of Interior, in collaboration with the Minister of Health, should ensure that the quarantine and isolation centers are off-bound to visitors 24/7. The Ministry of the Interior should be equipped with more vehicles and communication equipment to allow them to go to any part of the country to enforce these regulations. Number 6, there is need to deploy the Navy to sea immediately to curb illegal entry into the country and to ensure foreign fishermen do not dock on the Gambian shores without being subjected to mandatory health checks and quarantine. We are suggesting that the Navy should endeavor to stay at sea 24/7 with periodic shifts to ensure their own personal well-being. Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance may need to revise the 2020 budget to give more support to the operational activities of the Minister of Health in the fight against COVID-19. The Minister of Finance, in collaboration with the Central Bank, to facilitate the acquisition of foreign exchange for importers to continue importation of goods into the country. The government engaged the state-owned enterprises, local government authorities, especially the tourism, to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on their businesses. This will allow continuity of the essential services provided by these institutions. There is a need to holistically review the Public Finance Act 2014 to ensure that laws that contravene the Constitution are corrected, and at the same time formulate other laws within the Act that would be in line with best practices in public finance management. The committee strongly recommends the creation of contingencies fund through an Act of Parliament that would appropriate certain amounts of money to be used with very clear guidelines during the emergencies with natural disasters, epidemics, and pandemics. Minister of Local Government. The Minister of Lands, Regional Government, and Religious Affairs, in collaboration with the LGAs, should come up with a financial strategy that would keep the councils in operations. There is a need for the local government authorities and market committees throughout the country to find ways to decongest the markets so that social, physical distancing can be observed. To do this, we recommend that all those without canteens or tables inside the markets, as well as vendors on the streets, be moved to designated areas that will be clearly demarcated for each vendor to sell during the opening hours. For the regulations on open markets and shopping areas emergency powers, we recommend the following. To decongest the markets through the recommendations mentioned earlier, and then increase the opening times as follows. All markets be open from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. Again, we are making these recommendations based on 100% enforcement of the regulations. 2, the local government to fumigate the markets on a daily basis from 5 to 6 p.m. and mandatory face masks to be worn by everyone selling or entering the markets. Health, Minister of Health. All health facilities and points of entry be equipped with infrared thermometers for temperature checks. Incinerators should be provided in all facilities to ensure proper management and disposal of medical waste. The health and enforcement authorities to design a consistent and standardized format that would be used to collect detailed personal information of individuals entering the country and in all facilities across the country for purposes of easy contact tracing. Makeshift tents be provided at all border entry points, which was also recommended by the Health Committee earlier, as first point of contact for all incoming people, and shall supervise all hand washing, temperature checks, and screening before new entrants interact with any security official. The fact that epidemics and pandemics are on the rise globally, we recommend the building of well-equipped and well-resourced permanent treatment centers in all regions, as well as isolation centers at all border posts to better prepare for the future. The Minister of Health, in collaboration with the Gambia Standards Bureau, to initiate the production of standardized, reusable local face masks for nationwide distribution and for regulations to make it mandatory to wear them in public. Still on the Minister of Health. The Minister of Health and stakeholders to engage in regular disinfection of markets and other public places across the country. The Minister of Health should come up with a training plan for all doctors and nurses and expedite trainings to ensure there is enough manpower to handle and potential surge in the infected people. Minister of Trade. The Minister of Trade must be in constant touch with the importers to ascertain essential foods are in stock. There must be a weekly confirmation with verifiable data. The Minister of Trade, in collaboration with the Minister of Agriculture and Finance, should come up with a mechanism on how to handle the perishable goods that have been produced by the women gardeners across the country. Then I go to Minister of Fisheries. The Minister of Fisheries, in collaboration with the task force committees at the landing sites, should ensure that all foreign boats that dock on the shores of the country are impounded and persons on board be subjected to the necessary health checks and mandatory quarantine. Places should be identified and designated at the fish landing sites, different from the seaside, for fish vendors to sell their fish. This is to create enough space where social distancing can be observed. Additionally, we strongly recommend that all sellers use face masks during the entire time they are in those places. Honorable Speaker, still on fisheries. Although the fish meal factories claim to have scaled down production, thereby reducing crowds and public interactions, the evidence on the ground shows total disregard for social distancing and high risk of spreading the virus. We therefore strongly recommend that the fish meal factories be temporarily closed during this pandemic to avoid large crowds gathering to pick fish from the boats to supply the factories. Now I come to the resolution. Cognizant of the fact that COVID-19 cases continue to rise in neighboring Senegal, that has 2,189 cases, 23 deaths, Having considered the steady increase in the number of infected cases in the Gambia, most of whom are either from or traced to our immediate neighbor, 23 confirmed cases as we speak, noting that apparent under-resourced medical facilities across the country, as well as the inadequate supply of personal protective equipment to frontline and health workers to enforce the regulations, aware of the fact that the Minister of Health is yet to be in receipt of the medical equipment that were procured for the fight against COVID-19, aware of the ill-equipped and under-resourced state of holding and isolation centers, as well as the lack of treatment centers across the country, considering the fact that a lot of people in the Gambia continue to live in denial of the existence of COVID-19 and as such grossly disregard social distancing or any measures at public places in the markets. The committee thereby resolved that the state of public emergency be extended to a further 21 days, subject to strict adherence to the implementation of all state public emergency regulations. The committee further resolves that this August Assembly recognizes the relentless services of the health workers of this country, the contribution and the support of the Medical Research Council, the Gambia MRC, the invaluable support of the World Health Organization during this period, the contribution of the private sector, particularly GCCI and its entire membership, Tough Housing and Global, the Office of the Clerk of the National Assembly, and that of the Speaker, who continues checks on us periodically to find out, be safe, and at the end, the government of the Gambia also, we want to also extend our sincere thanks for what they provided so far to fight this pandemic. And on that note, Honourable Speaker, I want to thank each and everyone, but to also remind you that there are additional 5 appendices that we actually have that has some good information that you can make reference to, during your interventions. And on that note, I want to thank you.
Also, in addition to the last few sentences that you have added to the report, we ensure that it's included. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any seconder? It's been tabled. Fonyi Bintang Karanla, yes, thank you.
I rise to second the motion, and I would like to just buttress on the report of the Special Select Committee. Madam Speaker, let me first thank the Special Select Committee for coming up with a very, very good report to me with this limited time. I think, Madam Speaker, the main focus or objective of the state of emergency is to curb the COVID-19 or contain it. And I think, Madam Speaker, the first 45 days we approve here, the main reason why we approve it is for the government to come up with a relief package and other things. But, Madam Speaker, I think we have seen in the report that there is no coordination between the ministries and agencies, which, if that happens, we don't think the results we need will have it. I think there should be proper coordination between the ministries and agencies. That will help us a lot to cope this COVID-19. Madam Speaker, in that report also, they said that the health ministry said that if the social distancing is not observed, we may have around 181,000 people affected. Madam Speaker, that is a very serious thing. It's very, very serious if that happens. And I think he said 5% of that will die. So I think this is a very serious thing, and we need to see what best we can do to make sure that the COVID-19 pandemic is coped in the Gambia. Madam Speaker, I think the enforcement is the main issue here. That is lacking. And we need to make sure that the government makes sure that the enforcement is done properly. I think the enforcement even is only on one side, that is the churches and the schools. But we have seen the markets. We have seen the transport itself, the commercial transport, even the private and even government vehicles sometimes. You have seen they are not adhering to this social distancing. And we need to make sure that this enforcement, the government needs to make sure that this enforcement are adhered to. And I think, Madam Speaker, you talked about the borders, the porous borders. Madam Speaker, in my constituency also, I have all my constituencies border with Senegal. Madam Speaker, really what they said is to the borders are very porous. Every day they are in the Gambia, and we know the infections in Senegal. And most of the infections, people here who are affected with coronavirus, some of them are from Senegal. So if the borders are not well secured, I think we will have more coronavirus cases in the Gambia than even in Senegal. So I think the government should look at this properly. Madam Speaker, I think these restrictions, the regulations, only the regulations that are there. I think the committee had done a very good job and given some of the recommendations. Especially, they said the state of public emergency be extended to 21. Madam Speaker, when I came in the morning, my intention was not to even add a single day to it, honestly. But with this report, honestly, I'm convinced. I now support the 21 days of the committee. But honestly, my intention was, my people told me that they rather die of COVID-19 than hunger. But in this report, it's a very good report, and as far as we assigned them to do a good job, and they have done a good job. So I really supported the 21 days, and they said, it's very clear, 21 days subject to strict adherence. So the government should also consider this very well. And we know that this regulation, Madam Speaker, has restricted people's movement, so people's earnings are also not up to what they expected. And Madam Speaker, we should consider one thing also. Electricity and water is one of the most important things in human's life. But now, in this COVID-19, they said we should wash our hands and do something. But now, sometimes we'll go for a day without water. And this is very important. Now, we should look at this also. And also, the government also should look at the scenario, because our earnings now are very, very low. To look how can they subsidize NAWEC, to see that the NAWEC, the bills for the NAWEC and other things for people to help them to pay their NAWEC bills, and also rent, Madam Speaker. Now, you go to every landlord or tenant is complaining. They cannot pay their rents. Some of the landlords also depend on this rent to feed their families. So it is a problem. I think the ministry or the government also have to look at this very well. Madam Speaker, on that note, I support the 21 days by the committee, by the Social Select Committee, and I thank them very for coming up with this important and very, very straightaway report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now put the question. It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable Assembly do consider the report of the Special Select Committee of the National Assembly on the implementation of the state of public emergency. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Now, any honorable member who wishes to take part in the debate may do so. And I think the constituency tags have already been raised, and I'll go by my list that has been provided by the table office. Honorable member for Sandu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. Honorable Speaker, first of all, I want to register my sincere gratitude to the committee of also Special Select Committee on COVID-19 for the wonderful job that they have done, and also to recognize the compliance of the ministries who are directed into this. Honorable Speaker, as alluded by other honorable member who just took the floor, I just want to look into the recommendations that was made by the committee. Honorable Speaker, I'll start with local governments and local government authorities. In the recommendations, the members stated all markets to open from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. Honorable Speaker, the implementation of the state of emergency regulations to all who are from the rural area, we have registered a lot of disparities as to what is happening here in the urban area compared to what is happening in the rural area. Honorable Speaker, some markets were allowed to open in the urban areas, while the local markets that we have in our areas are all closed. So if the committee is coming with recommendations where social and physical distances will be observed, I believe they can also extend the same regulations of physical and social distancing in some part of the rural Gambia where they have their local lumos. Because if you look at it, Honorable Speaker, the government has tried to provide food for these people, but before it comes, it's a little bit late. And also, most of these people, they are farmers. They depend on their produce and they depend on their livestock. And these livestock, the only place that you can sell them in that area is the lumos. So if you want to transport, let's say, a sheep or a goat from Sandu up to Abuko here, Madam Speaker, what do you spend on the way coming? If you come and sell it here, you will not even have that profit. So I am urging the government to please consider that area or the local government authorities, what they can do for those people, if they can also, what is implementable here in the campus here, whether it can also be implemented in that area. Honorable Speaker, if you go to still the same local government authorities together with agriculture, the move of the Muslim states, there are a lot of goods that our farmers are engaged on which are perishable, like onion, potatoes, you name them. So most of them, even the last time I engaged some women in Sandu, some of them even since they say COVID-19, they stopped going to their garden. And right now, what will they depend on? Is the produce that they have from their garden, they will go and sell. And those produce also, you can never sell them anywhere because they are not in large quantity that you can export them. You can only take them in a bowl, you go to the Lumo, sell them, you come back and feed your family. So if those places are closed again, they don't have any means. Government has to give them rice, give them sugar, give them oil, but you cannot eat the rice alone. There must be something beside that also. And they can only get those ones when they sell their produce to get some cash and they'll be able to feed their family. And also the enforcement of the regulation, Madam Speaker. There's a scenario in my area. The woman that you share the same bed with, and the woman is sick. There we don't have taxis. Means of transportation is very difficult. And the same woman, again, you cannot carry that woman on a motorbike to take her to a hospital. And again, the sad thing is, if you are son, the police officers will chase you. 2 police officers will be sharing one motorbike, and you and your wife cannot share the same motorbike. It's funny, because it's happened. 2 police officers, they were on a motorbike riding, chasing somebody who is carrying his wife to a hospital. Then you say, the regulation said 1 person to a motorbike, but 2 police officers to a motorbike. So which is not fair. Definitely, this is a challenge in that area. Like, let's say, example, if somebody is sick in Sandu, we don't have a major health center. The only major health center we have is in Bassi. And how will you leave your wife or your child on a sick bed? You cannot carry the person, you don't have motor, you don't have a vehicle, there's no taxi, and most of the routes are one way. Early mornings, when the vehicle leaves Diabugu, they go to Bassi, they will not come till 6 p.m. So you have somebody on sick bed. How will you transport that person to a nearest to Bassi or a nearest health center when the police are everywhere monitoring? 2 people should not be on one motorbike, but 2 police officers can be on one motorbike. So, Honorable Speaker, this is a concern. Definitely, I don't know what the Ministry of Health together with Interior, will go into this and look at it thoroughly to help our people so that there's at least equality or equity in the implementation of these regulations. In Combo here, we are seeing everywhere the markets, people are going on their daily business. And even right now, people started this wanted. But look, go to the provinces, you will not see any market open. All the markets are closed. The only market we have is Bassi. And Honorable Magasi can bear witness that even Bassi, the space there is not enough for the people of Bassi. Talk less of people who are coming from Wuli and Sandu to come and separate their mart, sell their goods. So this is a concern for our people. Definitely it's a concern. And Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Freight definitely is our ministry. They are trying a lot in terms of business, promote business in this country. But there is one thing that's come up. The regulations, and also there was a moratorium on importation of onion and potatoes. But Honorable Speaker, to my surprise, I don't know how it comes about. Government has given an order to someone who is importing, while Emir Karafi has a lot of food in stock. So if we are encouraging to promote local trades, I think we should give them that opportunity when whatever they have in the stock to push that into the market and even go further to engage our local farmers in the provinces who are producing onion, who are producing potatoes, to encourage them so that government will buy from them and they will also have something for their family. So with that, Honorable Speaker, the COVID-19 cases, we all know that if it is 100%, we can say 98% are imported. So for that being the case, I think we need to look at our borders, how we can control the movement of people from one region to the other, or from one country to the other. The COVID-19 cases, or the pandemic, definitely we know that it's worldwide. And Honorable Speaker, is something that we know we don't need to joke with. It's because here, if you look at our health system, we don't have that much technology that will be able to contain this virus. But what we can only do to help and educate our people that the virus is real and let them have the belief. But some people would just say, no, government is looking for phone. Fine, let government look for phone. The phone is still coming to this country. But the health of our people is our major concern. So if they don't understand, and we understood that it kills, and when it's separate, to stop it is not going to be easy, then the best thing is to go back again, sensitize our people, let them have the belief that this virus is real. If not, you'll be working towards somebody's health, the person is considering you as somebody, or your effort is useless. So definitely, Honorable Speaker, with that, the 21 days, I'm in support because it falls in maybe in our next session, that is June, the 21 days will go up to that. If we know that maybe what we expect, we did not see that, we can revoke the extension. I didn't mean maybe it's beyond that, because we all know that this is the second extraordinary session. After that, we can never meet again until maybe next session. But since the 21 days fall into that, I think it's a good, how to call it, recommendation from the committee. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, may I just appeal that we have about 30 honorable members who want to intervene. And the way the table office recorded it, if I'm to go by the list like this, we'll just concentrate on the side, and everybody raised his or her tag at the same time. So I will be juxtaposing from here to there so that everybody will have an opportunity, at least from both sides. But let's just be very to the point and precise, and know that we're debating the report. If you can link the interventions to the report, I think it will help to expedite the proceedings. Honorable Member for Jara East. Yeah, no, it's Jara East. Yes, Jara East, thank you.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the floor. I will also join my colleagues to thank the Special Select Committee of the National Assembly on the implementation of the state of public emergency. Madam Speaker, you will agree with me that this committee has done a tremendously good job taking into account the issues surrounding COVID-19. They have taken a supreme risk, Madam Speaker, in convening meetings basically to address issues bordering on the pandemic. And I want to thank them for a job well done. Madam Speaker, the essence of easing regulations, restrictions is geared towards alleviating the suffering of our masses. And I think the special committee have done that. Madam Speaker, but notwithstanding, the restrictions have their own side effects as well. They have their ups and downs. Madam Speaker, vast number of our constituents are affected as a result of these emergency measures. And I think we must all put on our thinking caps to ensure how to alleviate their suffering. Because the essence of our being here is to wipe their tears. That's the long and short of our being here as people who are representing their constituents. Speaker, I have some problems with some of the regulations that were enforced. The mode of enforcement, there's a problem there. If you say social distancing or physical distancing, Madam Speaker, it's not observed in certain places. For example, if you go to our markets, there is hardly an element of social or physical distancing being practiced. Madam Speaker, if you go to our ferry terminals, people are crammed into the ferries. I am cognizant of the fact that the authorities have reduced the number to half, but yet still, if you look at the passengers on board the ferry, you tend to wonder as to whether the regulations are giving any regard. Madam Speaker, and these restrictions have a lot of casualties. Has to do with our religion. For coming to a month now, the mosques and churches have been deserted, basically due to the restrictions. I would urge the Special Select Committee or this august body to please have a look at some of these. If some of them can be eased, and I think it's high time for us to ease them, especially when it comes to the issue of religion. Madam Speaker, it goes without saying that religion is the opium of the society. It is very, very key to our existence.
if markets, ferry terminals are allowed to be congested, either by design or by default, I want to suggest humbly that our religious places like the mosques and churches for us to consider. In doing that, Madam Speaker, I can tell you, it will serve as a very good measure. Because I believe fervently, when we go to our churches or our mosques, when we pray before the Almighty God, that is another way of lessening the pandemic. That's my detached opinion. Madam Speaker, the suffering of our people must be considered beyond all reasonable doubts. People who are here and they are commuters traveling to the provinces, the amount of money they are charged to pay, Madam Speaker, is quite exorbitant. Some are forced to pay double fares. Double fares. This I have confirmed because I took it upon myself to go. I went to one of the garages just to know what obtains. But believe you me, some of the passengers that were bound for my constituency, definitely speaking, we are not happy. And I think there is a need for us to look into this very closely. It is not fair. The regulations, the restrictions, Madam Speaker, or regulations are meant to lessen the suffering of our people. And we are also here to help in assuaging the suffering of our people. That is the alpha and omega of our being here. If that is defeated, Madam Speaker, then there's a problem. There's a problem. The regulations were even violated by people who are highly placed. I can tell you this. People who are highly placed violated the regulations. And that is not sending a good signal. They said charity begins at home. We expect those who are highly placed to observe and respect in total the regulations that we have passed here in this August Assembly. Madam Speaker, you don't expect a lawmaker to be a lawbreaker. That is quite unfathomable. We must make sure that we respect the regulations in total. But what is very, very important, Madam Speaker, is the plight of our people. That's very key. That is very key. How are these regulations being felt by our people, these restrictions? And I think if you look at the wider picture, we will know that, definitely speaking, some of our people are not happy with some of these regulations in place. Because I can tell you, some of them live from hand to mouth. Some of them are menial laborers. If they go to the market, they sell their wares. That's what they use, to feed their family. That's what they use to eke out a living. So if the restrictions are there to serve as a barrier for them to get their livelihood, I think we should give a second thought. That is very key. Madam Speaker, having said that, the 21 days, Madam Speaker, is very good. It's very good. But do we have what it takes to enforce these regulations to the letter? That is the million-dollar question. Do we have what it takes in terms of human resources, material resources, and you name it? That is the million-dollar question. If laws are printed on letters of gold, and they are not enforced, Madam Speaker, they are as futile as their non-existence. If laws are printed on letters of gold and they are not enforced to the letter, they are as futile as their non-existence. I think we have to think about that also, because that's very key. And the essence of this emergency powers is to save our people from contracting this deadly coronavirus. But from the look of things, people are not in the habit of respecting the regulations. Madam Speaker, I think we should be very, very cognizant of that. I, for one, I think the 21 days, Madam Speaker, is on the high side. What I would suggest, if at all we can prevail on our people, embark on mass sensitization, and advise them to stick to WHO standards, that is, by regularly washing their hands and maintaining social distance, and also know how to sneeze, when to sneeze, where to sneeze. I think that will help a lot. Yes. Some they don't know when to sneeze and how to sneeze. The new because they don't know. You see? I think that will help a lot, Madam Speaker. For that being the case, Madam Speaker, I think for the 21 days, I think we should not go in for the 21 days. Because it is going to multiply the suffering of our people. Honestly speaking, it is going to multiply the suffering of our people. And the long and short of our being here is only to transform the fantasies of our people into realities. So if they are feeling the pinch, we should be there to assist them. We should be there to assuage the suffering that they are going through. Believe you me, if you go to my constituency, Yara East, there are some households, they are living in abject poverty. And that is across the entire Gambia, I can see, in the provinces. They find it very difficult to put food on the table because of the restrictions. This, I have gone there and I have seen with my naked eye. This is an eyewitness account. It's not a hearsay. I was on the ground. I sympathize with some of them and equally empathize with them. But there's little that I could do. I think their plight must be put into consideration. Head of a household, you wake up in the morning thinking that you'll go to work, to the market, to sell your produce, but you cannot do it because of regulations in place. And there's no one that will come to your aid. Yes, I'm not oblivious of the food aid that the government has rolled out or about to roll out. And I know it's better late than never. I must commend the government for having the initiative or the foresight to assuage the plight of the Gambians. I must commend them for a job well done, even though better late than never. But I think there is need for us to put in mechanisms so as to know how to distribute these food items. Madam Speaker, the trickle-down effect must always be felt. If that is not felt, the beneficiaries will find themselves at the receiving end of suffering. And may God forbid, if that happens, the whole food package, the whole palliative measures is going to be defeated. No one is praying for the multiplication of this COVID-19. We are all united in dedication, in diversity, in solidarity, but also in adversity. It is the nation in crisis. And it is the nation that is wearing the same thinking cap. Although our thinkings might differ, but that does not mean that Mr. X or Mr. Y does not wish well for the country. We can have divergent opinions, but no matter divergent opinions, the health of our people is very, very paramount, Madam Speaker. If we observe WHO standards, hand washing, regularly and thoroughly, we fumigate our environment, observe social distancing and physical distancing, decongest in our crowded places, Madam Speaker, this COVID-19 will be given a heavy blow. But lest we do that, it will be very difficult for it to abate. The only panacea to keep this thing at bay is to observe WHO guidelines thoroughly and also observe social or physical distancing. With that, Madam Speaker, there is tendency for this disease to be defeated. Madam Speaker, to conclude, I would urge all Gambians to remain committed, to be united in solidarity, united in dedication, and united in commitment. That's the only way COVID-19 could be kept at bay. We must all focus on the same thing and make sure the powers that be are also not found wanting in terms of violating these said, restrictions that are in place. Madam Speaker, if a man in the street violates a regulation, that will not make much attention. Madam Speaker, but a highly placed individual, if that person violates, Madam Speaker, that will amount to an egregious violation. Because you have the enlightenment, you have the awareness, but still you violate. That's quite egregious. We should not allow that. We must be examples, we must be pace setters, so that we will serve as role models for all those progress aspirants. So with this remark, Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Special Select Committee. You are indeed special, because you sat in special moments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Lower Nyumi.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the floor. I want to make observations on the works of the task force to highlight some of the constraints that would not be possible unless and until they are addressed by the body that is responsible for the operations of the implementations. If we go to the recommendations, page 34, security, there is need to deploy the Navy to sea immediately to curb illegal entry into the country and to ensure foreign fishermen do not dock on the Gambian shores without being subjected to mandatory health checks and quarantine. For the Navy to stay at sea for 24/7 hours is not possible because the Navy is not well equipped, does not have the resources to do that. We are witnesses by virtue of the fact of our settlement to these constraints that the Navy is facing. And unless and until this area is addressed, we rule out the possibilities that the Navy would be able to stay at sea 24/7. They don't have the boats. Even if they have the boats, they don't have the fuel. A good number of the small
Honorable Loanyomi, yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, once again. As I was saying, the Navy is not that equipped to go on that surveillance or to go on that patrol for that period because of the constraints of not having enough fuel to enable them to do that. A good number of the smuggling taking place is by boats that would load in Banjul as if they are heading to Barra, would head straight to Senegal. In most cases, it is the Senegalese that do apprehend such boats. The other aspect I want to observe in the report is social distancing. All habits die hard, and it is our culture that we get close to each other by virtue of the fact that that is how we have been brought up. To bring us a regulation, to tell us it is because of this that we would ask you to stay away because of the possibility of
Honorable nominated member, Ndeyasin. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I'm not ready. The mic went off. As I was saying, Madam Speaker, it is going to be very hard. It would need a lot of sensitization for our people to appreciate, understand, and accept that social distancing is in this case. But that is lacking. Where we have the security forces that are implementing most of these measures, instead of talking to people, they use brute force. And you would be surprised to know that our security forces are still using brute force. You find people sitting, as did happen in Jokado. Alight from the vehicle, go and tell them, well, this is not allowed if you would sit aside for a distance or so. But you just alight from the vehicle and start lynching them. You know, people would not even appreciate it. Then the blame goes to government. This is how the government is handling. Well, actually, it is not the wish of government to do it that way. As the implementing, it would be better if the Ministry of Interior is much out to tell its personnel to operate people with civility, rather than being very brutal to them. Madam Speaker, the extension as proposed by the task force is adding salt to injury. Our people are suffering. Our people are suffering. And their sufferance is going to be impounded by any additional 1 day on top of these 45 days that we had passed. For the past 45 days, nothing had come to the people. The rice that is said to be distributed, we still have it in stock. For the past 45 days, some have gone to the extent of using the seeds that they intend to plant for the rainy season. And we are requesting for extension. Our people do not and would not appreciate that. They could take it without any alternative, but they would not. I am sure when we go out, our people will tell us what you have done is not fair, it's not right. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable nominated member, Ndeyasin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. I will start by applauding the committee for this job, because this is what we are expecting from you. Maybe the other thing that you did not put on your recommendation is the sensitization to the public, which is very essential. Some people do not still believe that this deadly disease is prevailing. And we really have to make sure that we talk about it. Like if you go to the radios now, everywhere you go to, radio stations, you are hearing lessons. I think those lessons in schools, the same thing should happen, to train people to know, to sensitize them, to know, to train some people on how to sensitize people. Because if you go outside and talk about, some will even say, no, this disease is not true. And then the other thing is, Gambians have been suffering since time immemorial. When you knew that there was no coronavirus up to this time, what about if you happen to be struggling since time immemorial up to this crying situation? What do you think? It will continue, and this is what is happening. I think we as National Assembly should come on board to let our people know that this is what is happening, and we work together as one for the betterment of our nation. This is a deadly disease, and to me, I am asking, is it that if we forget about this state of emergency, are we creating for more deaths? It's either this way or that way. And this is the situation. We have to be as reasonable as possible. We have to come together, put our hands on deck, tell everybody what to do, including ourselves as National Assembly members. And we should really make sure that we enforce this at least 21 days. Because for me, the last 45 days, to me, whatever you say, they'll tell you, You are at your National Assembly and you don't know the situation. I know the situation. I know what is happening. Since time immemorial, since in the 60s, up to now, the Gambians are struggling. There is nothing that can make the Gambians be happy. Much more than this situation, we are in a different situation, rather than saying that it's true, the Gambians, we are really struggling. Even the National Assembly members are struggling. What about if we have our salaries and everybody will come and then we're supposed to give them what we have? How are we going to manage? These are things that we really have to put on board, and we have to sensitize our people. We have to let them know that this is a deadly disease and it is ready to kill us. Who will know when to die? Do we know that we are going to be infected by this disease? I think we should be realistic to ourselves and tell our people that this is deadly, and then we come up with a very, very, very robust sensitization, and then let our people and let the government also put their hands on deck to let people that they have what they are supposed to get, and let this state of emergency be enforced. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Sabah Sangyar.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think this is a surprise. Okay. Madam Speaker, let me also take the opportunity to thank the committee for a job well done. However, I have some observations on the report. Especially on the recommendations. Can I have this? I want to believe that, Madam Speaker, some of the recommendations were part of the Ministry of Health strategy plan, and they are coming up with those recommendations as another recommendation. I don't know whether it is not implemented or not. So that is what I observed first. And secondly, I was also expecting to see that if they see a gap in the implementation of the regulations, they come up with a recommendation to manage that problem. But that is not forthcoming in the report as well. Looking at the report, if you look at the health officers, the front workers, the frontline workers, nothing is being said about them. And we all know that they are really at a very risk position. I was expecting that to talk something about and how they are handling these problems. So that is not featured in the recommendation. I want to remind them that that is also important. Now, the social distancing issue. In fact, I would just say the regulation in general. Madam Speaker, let us call a spade a spade. Gambians are human beings like any other human being in the world. So if you look at the world, the entire world, this problem affects everywhere. And people put regulations to manage the pandemic. But the behavior and the attitude of Gambians toward this regulation was very bad. That is the hard fact, Madam Speaker. So if you look at our markets, some regulations were made just to make sure that people are not infected. But people are not even adhering to that. Nobody is observing this. The closure time, the opening time of the market were not enforced. So we have a problem, and that is enforcement. So I want to believe that government or the parliament don't do this to make people suffer. This is made to protect people from a deadly or a very serious pandemic which is going around the world. So if people understand that, I think they should really comply with the regulations that go along with the emergency. But this is not happening, Madam Speaker. And I'm hearing people are saying extending it for another day would cause another problem. What difference does it make with the activity of the people looking at what was happening? What difference does it make? The regulations were there, but nobody adhered to it. So you cannot tell me that it's because of these regulations people don't have what to eat. Because people were going to the market doing their daily activities as normal. It seems that, in fact, we are in a normal situation. Let us be factual. That is the fact in this country. So if you go to any market, this is how people behave. So we cannot, hide behind this regulation, say that people are suffering because of the emergency. For me, I am not a party to that. And what I want to say, Madam Speaker, just a short, because most of what I wanted to have been said by many people, is that if we remain complacent about this disease, we don't know what will happen. Because WHO report indicates that the peak period for Gambia is June. We don't know what will happen before June. We don't know what will happen at June. So if we think we are okay and we feel complacent, we don't put any mechanism to control this. When it comes, Gambia cannot handle this. Because we don't, in the first place, we don't have the places to harbor these people. We don't have the materials. We don't have the human power even. So it's better we prevent before we go to that level. That is my take on that. Madam Speaker, however, I would want to, if you look at the recommendation also, the resolution, I see no point when closing the mosque. The mosques are closed and the markets are left open like that. People spend time in the market, more time than in the mosque. The most people meet there in a periodic time, 5 times a day, and at a very set period for each meeting. So you cannot just, allow the market to be operating like that, enforcing the regulations on the mosque. For me, that one is really a problem to me, and I would like to seize the opportunity to indulge in this parliament to look into that issue, the issue of the mosque. If it is to be, enforced or continue to be closed, the market should be also closed like the mosque. Closing the market does not mean that the market will be closed entirely. But people must observe social distancing. People also must know that this is not a place to sit. You just come and transact your business and go. But people are not doing that. So if you go to if you apply the same thing at the mosque, you provide the hand washing material, the sanitizers, people can pray. So for me, I would rather attach myself to their recommendation for 21 days extension, or even more, because even when we make it more, if the need is not there, Parliament can just revoke that. Or the President can revoke that through a gazette. So I think that is not a problem. My problem is the regulation, not the period of the emergency. So the regulation, that is to how the country is to be governed in that period, is the most important thing for me. Madam Speaker, until we come to the next item, I beg to take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Fonyi Bondali. No, sorry, it's not Bondali. Sorry, Councillor, yes, Fonyi Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just want to say that it's important that the Special Select Committee have done their job and presented the report before plenary, which we are looking at, and the recommendations equally have been very clear. And the Honorable have made my interventions easy because you have touched on the local government and agriculture. I will not belabor talking about those two areas. I'm happy that the chairman of the Special Select Committee is back, and in his report he made mention that the committee did not have the opportunity to meet with MOPSI, but it would have been very important for the committee to meet MOPSI, because we are all aware that there is kind of an education system taking place in the country with the use of radio and TV. And this is supposed to serve the entire Gambian students. But as opposed to what obtains, this is not the reality on the ground. It would have been important for MOPSI to be engaged, and MOPSI further explain how did they come up with the conclusion of using TV and radio to conduct lessons for students. Because if you look at it, it's not the least fair that you have a certain sector of students in this country enjoying that privilege, another sector not even knowing what is happening. I don't know whether plenary would create room for the Special Select Committee to have a day or two with the Ministry of MOPSI so that we get the feedback from them. How did they reach this conclusion? It's very important. Honorable Speaker, I want to look at these two scenarios, which for me are also very important. The Special Select Committee, in their report, they have made mention of the discussions they had with the Gambia Christian Council and the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council. Their observations were raised, but in the recommendations, I did not see it captured what the Special Select Committee would have recommended as per these two religious bodies. Just like the member for Sabah Sanjal and other interventions earlier stated, the time, particularly, let's say, for instance, if it is the Friday prayer, scholars are saying there is a possibility that people can converge in mosque to observe Friday prayers at not more than 30 minutes. In fact, in some cases, some are saying in 20 minutes it can be observed. So if the committee is recommending for the extension of the opening of markets with the physical and social distancing and all what's not, it's applaudable, provided the enforcement will be taken into consideration. Again, what stops us from ensuring that these two religious denominations, the Christians and the Muslims, also have time for Fridays and Sundays to worship? And again, I saw in the report, if I am right, where it is stated that GIBOS, no, is it GIBOS? Yes, Gambia Bureau of Statistics, can come up with a standardized mask recommended. Yes, Gambia Standards Bureau, sorry, Gambia Standards Bureau can come up with a recommended standardized mask, face mask, that could be used for worshippers. And again, we avail them the opportunity of ensuring that they have hand wash facilities between all the entrance to those places of worship, and again, have hand sanitizers as well. If that is something to be considered, I would not hesitate to throw my weight on this recommended 21 days as per the resolutions of the Special Select Committee. Where that does not happen, I wouldn't mind being the only person to object for the increment of the state of public emergency, even for a single day, because it's very important. Honorable Speaker, again, I will commend the efforts of the Special Select Committee, because if you crisscross this South Bank route, you see a fleet of foreign vehicles coming into the Gambia day in, day out, in their numbers. So you begin to wonder, how secure are our borders? And these people are not using where we call porous borders, but they are using borders where we have our security men and women. What is happening? What kind of goods are they bringing in and out of the country on a daily basis? This is something that also needs to be considered. I think here we want to call upon the Ministry of Interior and Defense to partner and ensure that when we say borders are closed, we mean borders are closed, or we mean closure of borders. But we cannot just say borders are closed and the next moment we see vehicles flying in and out of the country. It's like when I listened to the health minister talk about the most recent cases that they were from Senegal. Through which entry point did they come into the country? And we have a host of Gambians stranded in Senegal. I remember the last time I made mention of it here. What can we do looking at our relationship? Some of them, as we speak, are completely stranded. They are out of pocket. They don't have money. They want to come home, they cannot come home. Again, I want to re-echo. what can the government do using our relationship with Senegal in ensuring they facilitate the homecoming of Gambians that are stranded in Senegal. It's very pathetic when you talk to some of them. Honorable Speaker, again, I will not belabor on the relief package because yesterday we had the opportunity to engage with the NDMA, the Gambia Red Cross Society. They have given us, the Health Select Committee, enough information and enough evidences as to why the relief package is delayed. That one. But all I want to say is, as per our engagement with the NDMA, I, as an individual, I made mention, and I will say it here, that listening to the presentation by the NDMA, the manner in which the food package is to be disbursed, it is completely transparent. Very, very transparent. I am convinced beyond reasonable doubt that there will be no foul play. Because I took time to make clarifications, to ask questions as much as I can, and based on the explanation and the methodology in which they are going to apply in the disbursement, the whole process is transparent. Honorable Speaker, again, the youth. Go to our football pitches in the evening. You begin to wonder what is happening. All football pitches are engaged. Youths are playing football just like anything, any normal thing, forgetting that it is not only affecting churches and mosques and markets, but in fact there is more physical contact in football pitches. So what are we doing to that effect? What are we doing to that effect? There is one culture that the Honorable Chair of Health can attest to, and some of the colleagues I interact with. I tell them that there is this culture that I hope and pray that post-COVID-19, the Gambia will adopt it as a culture. And that is what? Regular and constant hand wash. It improves our personal hygiene. That is one beauty that me as an individual appreciate as far as all the WHO recommended standards are concerned. Because I took an example, I take the example from my own home. When my kids and other kids that come into the house wash their hands, after a few minutes I go and look at the bucket. You see the nature of the water. So had this practice not been done, it means all this was going to go into our system. So that is something that is why I said it's a culture that I only hope and pray that as Gambians, we will adopt it for the rest of eternity. It is very, very, very important to our way of life. Honorable Speaker, I came to the Parliament and like the only odd person here, but very comfortable. Comfortable in the sense that we had a discussion with Red Cross, and our chair reliably informed us that here we are, and the entire Parliament was fumigated. So I feel I am safe, I am not at risk, and as a result, I am very comfortable to be in the manner in which I am. But I can see how other colleagues are struggling. Even the Honorable Minister, here and there, I will see him pull it down, take it up, pull it down, take it up, because it's a strange culture. But over time, we will get used to it. On a more serious note, Honorable Speaker, again, let me re-echo. Sorry, before I conclude, Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Health Minister is here. Yesterday, I challenged the NDA, but they have their reservations. I said, why can't we introduce the temperature testing during the disbursement of the food relief? Because I believe it's an avenue where the frontliners can also use that opportunity to be testing people's temperatures rather. But they have their reservations, but I am still maintaining my stance that it's important for us to do that. The 21 days by the Special Select Committee, like I said earlier on, Honorable Speaker, I will echo. On consideration that these places of public worship are also given the opportunity, even not on 5 daily prayers, but at least every Friday and every Sunday, if that is something to go by, I will throw my weight on the 21 days. If not, I would totally, and I repeat, totally opposed to the increment or extending the state of public emergency even for a single day. On that note, Honourable Speaker, thank you for...
Thank you very much. Honourable Member for Kantora.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, for giving me... I equally join my colleagues to thank the entire membership of the Select Committee, the Special Committee on this COVID-19. Equally, at this juncture, allow me to recognize the presence of Cabinet Minister here in presence. And coming to the discussion proper, I do have some observations, very brief and short. That is, when I went through the report, certain border posts, very significant indeed, being left out and not touched. I believe the URR does not only have the necessary border post, but equally, if you go to Kantora constituency, where I hail from, there's a border post called Nyamanari. It's a place where human transaction or human communication, goods and services vehicles normally pass through is very key. And I was surprised why that place is not visited. And I would be also more than willing to really engage the committee there to take them through and also see the beautiful job that is on the ground by the personnel and also meet the volunteer Red Cross members. These are youths in Kantora. Took up the initiative to volunteer to be part of the Red Cross, and then they have their motorbikes. They normally patrol around and to see the issue of illegal trafficking of persons from Senegal. And at this juncture, I would like to applaud their effort and thank them so much for statesmanship. It's a right move in the right direction as well. Having said that, probably during the response of the mover would give a reason why that place is omitted as well. Having said that, I will be so brief, and that is to also look at the issue of worship. Of course, we do recognize that Gambia is a religious state comprised of Muslim and Christian as well. But there is this outcry about how can the regulation be reshaped again to make sure at least would give a way for people to really worship. If I would have loved the committee to engage the Supreme Islamic Council, in Islam, is it allowed, like during worship, to have a spacing? You know, when that is really asked or triggered, when a question is triggered to them, then they will have a befitting response. And that will actually help them to arrive at a certain conclusion that, okay, we recommend that it is accepted in Islam, when praying on the same line, you can create distance among each other, which is primarily focused on to avoid human contact. When that is actually done, then I think the committee will be in best position to actually allow or advocate for the reopening of the mosques. And also the time frame as well, alluded by member for Kansala, Foni Kansala, that it is very operational that you can conduct a Friday prayers, a sermon within 20 minutes. When that is communicated that we are going to allow you to operate, but sermon, Friday prayers or Sunday churches normally consume time, and so many people normally attend, it becomes so crowded. And then that we are trying to change the entire narratives, that is to allow you to operate within a time frame of 20 minutes and disperse, provided that X, Y, and Z, sanitizer, wash hand, things are provided in the mosques or the churches, and at least because we are of the belief, according to some political philosophers like St. Thomas Aquinas, says that the supremacy should supersede the state. That is, the human beings should walk towards the eternal enjoyment of hereafter, and that is only attained in the mosques and churches. Therefore, they have the belief that states should be subordinate to the religious place. However, it's just a political thought. But of course, we can actually consider that particular initiative whereby there could be distancing, a little bit space between two people or three or in a line to allow that distancing to be observed. And if that is advisable by the health minister, it's something to go by and can also serve as a deterrent, not to possibly affect or transmit the COVID-19 to other people, then the measures could be adopted. However, I just stand to applaud the committee membership for the statesmanship and also give my blessings to the report as recommended by them for 21 days of this extension period. Thank you so much for indulgence.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Busumbala. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I also want to join my colleagues to thank the Special Select Committee for a job well done during these trying times of the country. Madam Speaker, I will try to be very brief, just only to talk about the reports, because we have another document that we are going to discuss. That's the extension of the state of emergency. Madam Speaker, starting at the beginning of their report, the meeting they have with the Minister of Justice, I want to express my disappointment there a little bit, because I believe in this time of COVID-19, there needs to be a very strong collaboration between all sectors of the government. The Minister of Justice came here for state of emergency. We've given the approval of 45 days, and we have regulations that we agreed on. We believe there should be a proper coordination between the Minister of Justice and all other stakeholders that have the responsibility to implement. You see, all the talking that we are doing here, many are giving reference to disregard to social distancing. And part of the regulations, social distancing is being mentioned there. So if I told there was a proper, and then if you go to the Minister of Interior, who should be responsible for the enforcement of these regulations, they said they are not being properly involved and trained and provided with equipment. So these are issues that we need to be very, very serious with, especially in this time. There shouldn't be no blame game, but everybody should do your responsibility and inform and collaborate with every stakeholder that is relevant. As it is now, securities are needed in our country to be able to implement. But we need to know, as Gambians, this is an emergency, a pandemic that is affecting the whole world. Gambia is no exception to that. And what we are seeing in other countries, we shall never pray for it to come to Gambia. As it is now, we are 23. When we are given the 45 days here, we are less than 23. But we'll be given 45 days and we are having 23. That means it's going up. So we should ask ourselves, what was the problem? Or what is the problem? The problem is non-enforcement of the regulations. And who is responsible? Is the bodies that are responsible. So if the committee went and asked, the Minister of Justice manifested and agreed, then there was no collaboration. We should blame them for that. We expect the Minister of Justice to get this regulation and serve it to all relevant organizations and agencies that are responsible to implement this one. And then Minister of Health should look at it to provide materials that are necessary for the securities to be able to do their job. It's true, if the Interior are not provided with materials, they will not be able to dispatch their men to the streets because they could be infected. So this is something. Madam Speaker, when you look at generally, for the extension, non-extension, I want to wait for the situation that the expert advice on the level of COVID-19 in the country. But from the regulation, the information given to us by the committee, obviously there is need for us to extend. But how long? will depend on the advice I'm going to get from the expert. Madam Speaker, if you look at this, the 23 cases we have in the country, greater percentage is imported. And our airspace is closed because we have only one international airport. That's the Union Airport, or Banjul Airport is closed. So all these other cases that are coming up, that means they are coming through the borders. And we all agree and know what we do. We cannot secure our borders 100%. That one is obvious. Because of the relationship we have, the geographical relationship we have with Senegal, it will be very difficult for us to 100% close our borders. Because the borders are porous, there are other ways out. But how best we can minimize, Madam Speaker? I raised it here the other time. Securities are key, especially border securities. Why won't we look at them again, the money that we have, the fund that we are getting for this COVID-19, and consider the security? Because last time I went to the Army headquarters, there was this, from the PRO of the Army, they said they have also declared COVID-19 as a war, as an enemy to the country. So they are ready to fight it in whatever. But in whatever, they need to have the information, the correct information about COVID-19, and also they need to be provided with materials. One way of this, they need to be given personal protective gears, equipment that they need, the soldiers need at the borders, and also they need to be provided with mobility. Because if you look at our borders, today, all identified borders are closed. Where you have the security checkpoints are closed. Nobody is passing there. But every day we are hearing that people are entering into the country. So what is lacking now is constant patrol. And those patrols cannot be done if securities are not given mobility. I am suggesting to the government, as from today, let them revise. They are buying mobilities, pickups and the like. But those at the border, if they can have motorcycles for them and provide them with material, personal protective materials, soldiers and other security forces can be patrolling the borders constantly. And then they engage the border villages that let us not hide and hoard anybody. If anyone that you feel like know that the person has newly entered into the country, you report the person to the police. This is what I was trying to, for the security, the border needs to be strengthened very well. So in that we need to effectively use the service of the security. Madam Speaker, in the consultation with the committee, they said they have met with the religious leaders. It's true, many will talk. You see, I have made it here the other time. If it was me, if people have listened to me and understand very well, you know, I was wanting to declare that the offices must be open. Because, you see, there was a proclamation that, by the president, that all worship places should close. But I believe, in this time of COVID-19, everybody is needed to be involved. I said the president might be in the State House, but he has somebody who is representing me in the mosque. If there was a proper consultation, you see, some might think, say, let mosque open, mosque not open, some are praying, some are not praying, imams been arrested there, that would have been arrested, there have been no problem with that. Let us consult and collaborate with our religious leaders and tell them this pandemic, and then get their suggestion also how best we can. If I want to give my recommendation to that, as it is now, this is because I've done consultation and I'm still doing consultation, and I know many of the members here will have this confrontation from their people that our worshiping places should be open. But now, I want to give a suggestion here. Let there be a special regulation, not just by verbal like that. Let there be special regulation on mosques, on worshiping places, mosques and churches. But that regulation needs to involve the stakeholders. Even not all imams, but the Supreme. Somebody mentioned here to ask whether it's possible in praying in our mosque to have social distancing, 1 meter or 2 meters away from each other. Is it possible? And I know it's possible because we are seeing pictures from other places. It's possible. Is it possible for us to have this, wash our hands before entering into the mosque, whether it's going to nullify our ablution or not? Yes, it's possible. So when that is done, then there could be a responsibility given to the mosque owners. When I say mosque owners, I mean the imams and the church heads. That in your church, in your mosque, there needs to be social distancing. And there needs to be constant fumigation of the mosque. Who is going to take the responsibility? You give it to the mosque committees. They will. So this is a cry that many are saying that they want to appeal to the government to allow the mosque to open, especially in this month of Ramadan, and more especially in these last 10 days of Ramadan. Madam Speaker, that one is very, very important. Somebody made mention about schools here. Funny in the country as it is now. You see, sometimes when I looked, because the idea, the information I have about this virus, and the fear I have for it, if I reach others, what they tell me is just very funny. I want to recommend to the committee, it would have been better, more better if they can include sensitization in their process. How best? They know it very well. We need to brainstorm on that. You see, sensitization is lacking in this country. Madam Speaker, whether people are deliberately denying or they are lack of the knowledge of this COVID-19, but there are a greater number of people who are in denial of the existence of this COVID-19, especially in this country. Especially in this country, some will say it is political. It has never come to the Gambia, but the government is trying to use just to get money. But what the area that the government is losing? We all cry that we don't want any foreign aid from outside. So governments need to depend here, but government is losing so many local taxes. So this where I think we need to sensitize our people for them to understand anything that the government is doing is not to the will of the government, but is because of the fear of this COVID-19. What is happening in other countries not to happen in the Gambia here. Madam Speaker, that's the point that I wanted to talk about, and the education sector. Somebody mentioned about education. I am part of the education committee. We are trying to, we had some meeting with them. Definitely it's pathetic. They are spending a lot of money and they are risking their own life. Not even money, but their own life that they are risking. To go out. They are trying to, give lessons through televisions. Madam Speaker, but if you go down to the grassroots, to the communities, it's ineffective. It's ineffective. And then consultations and analyses are going on. If you look at the infection rate of coronavirus, it affects the elderly than the junior ones. So, than the young ones. The one that is the young man, the school going, it could affect. No, you have to understand what I'm trying to say here. If you look at percentage-wise, more elderly are affected than the young ones. According to. So I was just suggesting, as that's the case maybe, because we need to go with analysis and experts' advice. I am just suggesting the education sector, the students are losing a lot. And not today. Poor students want to stay at home. But if you look at the impact it's going to give on the country in years to come, it's going to be very, very serious. And then again, it's going to affect the transition. You see, education is just like one leaves a step and others follow. For example, come September, there has to be new intake from home to grade 1. So there must be a phase in grade 1 for them to be enlisted in the schools. So if that is not done, grade 9 need to go to grade 10, so that there could be a space for grade 8. Grade 12 needs to graduate to universities and high school, so that there could be a space for grade 11 that are coming. So if we don't have this transition, it's going to really affect our education system. I am just suggesting, if it is possible, and I believe with consultation and expert ideas, it could be possible. If we cannot open all schools, but let us target this examination and transitional classes. What I mean by examination, I mean the grade 9 and grade 12. Grade 12, we can give them exam anytime, because they can all sit to private exams. But for grade 9, they need to transit to create space for the other ones that are coming. And if that is not done, it's going to delay. I'm just suggesting for the ministry and the government to look into that, to come up with a regulation to open schools for, if not for all, but for the grade 9s to come to school. They can observe, because when you say grade 9, schools, they have 4 or 3 classes of grade 9s. So when you have them, in bigger schools, it might not be more than 500 or 600. So if you want to, you can put them half of a class a role of a half of a role in one classroom and in other, then you call teachers to come. And then in that, you observe strict regulation of the WHO. Then you can have 2 months lesson them from there, you give them exams so that they can transit. Or else, Madam Speaker, is going to give them a very, very big problem. Madam Speaker, my last point, and I emphasize, let's use the securities. Let's strengthen the borders. Let's strengthen the borders, and in doing that, we cannot just only say we need the securities at the borders, we need to provide for them. We need to provide for them the personal protective equipments, and then we need to provide mobilities. Mobilities, they can have motor cars, but they can have motorcycles, even sometimes bicycles, help us to mitigate and avoid people entering into the country. On that matter, Madam Speaker, I beg to sit until the next paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honourable Member for Woolly West.
Thank you, Madam. Allow me to make some short preliminary remarks. The world is at war with an invisible enemy. That is what must be understood. We are on a battlefield against an enemy that we cannot see. But it sees us. It is attacking us. But we are still incapable of attacking it because we don't have the weapon to attack it. But the beauty of being a human being is this. There is nothing that comes into this world as a difficulty, as a problem, that we as human beings cannot overcome. That is in our nature. That is in our intelligence. That is in our capacity. But you cannot win a war with sentiments. Wars are not fought with sentiments. Wars are fought with ideas, with skills, with objectivity, and with required weapons to fight. The beauty in our being human being is this. Even though this enemy is invisible, but our intelligence has told us that there is a way you can prevent yourself from it, even though you cannot see it. That is what we must be thinking about. That is where the intelligence lies. You cannot see an enemy, but you can prevent yourself from it. That is very intelligent. How do you prevent yourself? They say, well, if you do this, and you do that, and you do that, it cannot attack you. That is the issue. And here, sentiments have no place. It is tactic. This, in fact, everything that we are doing is tactical. What enables us to fight the enemy that we cannot see. We must strengthen ourselves. We must reinforce ourselves against an enemy that we cannot see. That's the tactic that we have been developing. That's the strategy that we have been developing. A strategy to overcome an enemy that you cannot see. Sentiments do not have place here. I have said it over and over and I repeat it. This National Assembly is the heart and soul of the nation. The nation depends fundamentally on this assembly. And we cannot afford to use sentiments to fight a war. We must use the required weapons if you want to win this war. We know there are deep-seated cultural practices. Everybody knows what they are in our society. But we cannot use those to fight this war. This war is much more powerful than those. And we must help our people to grow, to empower themselves against this enemy. We cannot do anything to weaken them against the enemy. If we do that, we are failing in our responsibilities in this National Assembly. Our job is to empower our people, to empower them in such a way that even though they cannot see this enemy, they can fight it and win it. We cannot use sentiments to help our people to become big and powerful against such an enemy. Let us not diminish ourselves. Let us not mitigate ourselves. We need all the forces that we need today to become stronger against this invisible enemy, which is devastating the world. That is the issue here. As far as I know, I have never, since my life up to this day, I've never heard of any virus in the world like this. Ebola came Africa. SARS came Europe. This one, the whole world. And that's why the world is united against an enemy that they cannot see. Let us not weaken ourselves with sentiments. They are not helpful. Madam Speaker, I think the committee is, we need to applaud the committee for the work that they have done. Within so short a time, 38 places, Basse to Bara, within so short a time with limited resources. They have done well. And that is what we require in our circumstances. Commitment to what we are to do to fight this enemy. Everybody must be committed to that. Please, let us help each other to grow. Let us help each other to understand the need for us to have the means necessary to fight this common enemy that we cannot see. We should not do or we should not say anything to weaken anybody against this enemy, this devastating enemy, an enemy which we don't know how long it is going to last. Do you know that there are new cases in China? New cases have emerged in 2 different places in China. And that is where they say it was going away. Now it has emerged 2 different places in China. We must be really prepared to fight this war. And we are very well ill-armed. You have all been saying it here. Ill-armed. And we should not allow that ill-armedness to continue by discouraging people, by putting sentiments into people to accept what is going to kill them. That is not our role. We are failing our people. We must help them to understand what they don't understand. And that is why it is our responsibility to help ourselves to become aware, to understand fully the nature of this enemy, so that we can help others to arm themselves better. Let us use sentiments here. Sentiments are not helpful in any situation, particularly in this situation. I'm not against extending the period, because it is emerging, it is increasing. Don't underrate the numbers. That's how it started everywhere. Ghana, it started with 18. 1 died. Now tell me how many have died in Ghana. How many are infected in Ghana? Thousands. So it is growing. So why do we want to become complacent in the face of an enemy which is waging an onslaught on the world? We cannot afford that. I am comfortable to pray to Allah in my house. Allah does not say that I should not do that. Allah in fact says in those circumstances that's precisely what I should do. Prevent yourself is better than to cure. That is in the Quran. Prevent is better than to cure. All that people have been talking about here, they don't help. If you open the mosque now, you say, okay, social, physical distance. Who are you going to say don't go into the mosque? The mosque will be so crowded that there will be no space to distance anybody. Who are you going to say go in and who are you going to say don't go in? Think about things objectively. I've been to a burial recently. It was overcrowded. They were talking about social distance, but it was overcrowded. I refused to shake hands. People were forcing me to shake hands. They forced me to hold their hands. That is what they know. But that is not right in our circumstances. It is a culture we all know, we embrace, but sometimes you have to put culture aside to survive. To worship is to survive. If you die, you cannot worship. Save yourself to keep your life in order to worship. Don't help yourself to die in order not to worship. Look at things more objectively, please. These are terrible times in the world, and this is time we should grow bigger as human beings. Difficulties should make us even acquire more knowledge against the enemies of our existence. That's the situation in which we are. Let's leave all these petty talks aside. Let's leave all these petty talks aside. Let us engage ourselves into dipping, into understanding the enemy that we are to fight. That is what we must do. I don't need to be a doctor. I don't need to be a scientist to want to save myself. To help myself to have the equipment necessary to save my life from perishing. And that is why this is a collective enterprise. Those who know are pulling together those who don't understand, don't know, and they are helping them to know in order for them to become strong against an enemy which is invisible. We are doing well, but we have to do still more. To do so little, don't such thing to be. My dear colleagues, we all know what the nature of our society is. And when you talk about distancing, if you look at the sociology of our society, sometimes when you talk about teachers, I laugh. Go to some homes here. There is only one house for father, mother, daughter, sons. One single room. Bedtime. What type of social distancing are you talking about in that circumstance? You see, we have to understand the nature of our society. We have to understand the nature of the structure of our society to be able to do these things, these measures, to design them and implement them. Unless we understand the nature of the society in which we are living in, all that we are saying will be meaningless. If you talk about social distancing in such a family, you are insulting them. That's what they have. What about a place where everybody eats from the same bowl? Which is also a culture, which is a practice everywhere. What are we saying about? What are we saying about that? Okay? A wife and a husband, they are two on the bed, but they are lying down. They can lie on top of each other. So that is also why social distancing there. You are laughing, but it's a fact. You sleep with your wife. When you are sleeping, you just roll on each other. You don't even know what you are doing. So like this thing. Funny. Well, I think Honorable Speaker, somebody has said it, but yesterday I talked about it, and Honorable Nyasi has mentioned it, and Bile also has mentioned it. No, Busumbala. See, this sector, almost all the sectors are affected by this COVID-19, but the sector which is going to be terribly affected is education. Why? Because here schools are closed, but lessons are being administered over radio and television, they say. I was coming in my vehicle and the radio was on. A woman was complaining bitterly on the radio that these online radio lessons are not helpful, are not any at all, because not many people are accessing them. That's what she was saying. And I can attest to that people from Wunli. I'm from Wunli. Even there is a student I'm sponsoring at Methodist Academy. She spent all her day yesterday trying to access it through her mobile. It was impossible. I said, look, something must be wrong with your mobile. If your friends are accessing it, you cannot then change your mobile. But, you know, does she have money to buy a mobile, Android mobile? No, she doesn't have. And there are many, many like that. So the whole syllabi for education are going to be distorted because they are seemingly administering lessons on the radio and television. When schools open, let's say tomorrow, they will pretend that what they have already been given on the radio and television, they should not go over that. Some have not, maybe 3/4 of the students have not accessed it. So that's distorting this. And it's creating a big disparity, as I said yesterday, among students themselves. The same class. Some are going up, some are still at the same place because they have not been having any lessons since the closure of schools. So that's why it is important that this committee must try and meet the relevant, in fact, it's both higher and lower education, whatever they call it. They should be seen, and we should see, they should assess so far the achievements and the challenges that they are meeting in using this media for administering their lessons. Madam Speaker, there's so much to say, but I think I'll stop here. But I want to stop by saying, please, 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 it is not impossible for us to overcome this, but we cannot overcome it disunited. We cannot overcome it with sentiments. I emphasize the word sentiments. We must leave them behind. They cannot help us in these circumstances. We need something much more than that. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Woolley East.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also rise to lend my support to this report. I think we are all monitoring the situation across the country in our various constituencies. Honorable Speaker, the report mentioned an expert opinion which revealed that over 181,000 people could be infected with the COVID-19 if the country fails to strictly adhere to the rules of social distancing. As an avid listener to media, especially external media, I can confirm this information. And if you go down in the same paragraph, if we had taken some care, we may end up with 53,000. But even 53,000 for a small country like this is too much. We should not even anticipate for that, especially with 1,000 beds. This is information that we must use to make decisions in this place. We know what COVID-19 has done to countries that have played down the pandemic. We know what is happening in Brazil. We know what is happening in the US. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are dying. And they are not even counting those who are dying in their homes, because they are not even in touch with those people. Some of them even get to these health facilities, but they are not treated because they don't have any opportunity for treatment. So this is a serious matter, and I think we must accept that it is a serious matter, more important than anything else. So I will thank the Special Select Committee for the report. I think they have done justice to their mandate. Honorable Speaker, my concern is in the area of enforcement. I think there are a lot of challenges to ensure that the regulations are enforced. Many people have said some of the things that I've already accepted or agreed. For example, at the border areas, if the security did not have patrol vehicles, they cannot get to the borders on a continuous basis. And if they cannot get to the borders on a continuous basis, that means that there is no border closer. There is no border closer. In my constituency, I've not seen any border closer. I was sitting in one compound, and then, somebody came from Senegal with a stick. He said he is selling animals. But he's looking after, he was following people who came with some of his animals, and then he's following them to see them. So he came to the compound without any contact with any security at the border, and told the alcalde that I want to sleep here for the night because I'm following my people who have gone with my cattle. We are selling cattle. That person just crossed. So if there is no patrol vehicle, I don't see how, we can control the borders. And then somebody is recommending taking soldiers to the border. My other concern is the army properly trained to deal with this situation, to take care of the human rights concerns that we have expressed, to take care of our democracy concerns, reasonably justifiable in a democratic society? Are they properly trained to do that? Or within this short period, can we train them to take care of those concerns? That's something that I have. Honorable Speaker, the other concern is the issue of transport fares. I took it upon myself and joined a vehicle from Farato all the way to here. And then what is taking place and what is in the regulation are completely different. The issue of progressive review of the fares was discussed here, and the suggestion was to review it progressively to make it better, win-win. But they reduced the fares because it is anticipated that the fuel will be reduced. We've seen that the fuel has reduced drastically, but the fares went up. They went beyond even what was stipulated. They went beyond the normal, what we call the normal at that time. From Faratu to Westfield was $18. Now, when you join vehicle from Faratu, they will tell you by Yundum is $10. When you get to Yundum, they will say, because they are taking only, for example, seven passengers. So to get 7 passengers that are leaving Yundum to go to Lamen, it's very easy to have. So they will say $10 to Lamen. From Lamen, they will say $10 to Tabokoto. And from Tabokoto to Latrikunda, $10. Latrikunda to Churchill Town, $10. Churchill Town, Westfield, $10. By the time you get to here, you are paying $60 to $70. So that has completely defeated the regulation, the intention of the regulation. All the police are concerned is the number of people in the vehicle. I see them stopping vehicles for that. But I've not seen any officer interested in knowing how much fares are being used on the people. So that needs to be looked at. My other concern, Honorable Speaker, I visited the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. And that day, it was an earlier period. Nurses were running away from people because they were not protected. They did not have any protective gear. So when people come to them, they don't know who is who. They want to run away from you. If you want to ask them, they want to run away from you. And we are told that they have stopped other cases. Only emergency issues, that's what they will address. But how many other cases, apart from COVID-19 concern, how many other cases that we have? We have many patients living at home waiting so that when this period passes, they'll be able to come because they said they are only dealing with emergency cases. So I did not see an issue in that in the report. And also, Honorable Speaker, we can look at our cases as very small. But how is the testing done? Are we testing? How many places do we have testing? How many people have we tested? I did not see that in the report. Maybe they did not have that report. So if you are not testing people, you will hardly have cases, and people may be dying, but you will not know why they are dying. And maybe they are suffering from COVID-19. You never know. So testing must be done. So if we wait for people to come and say, I am sick, how many people will come and say, we know Gambians? It will not easily be done. Honorable Speaker, the other concern is the private schools. We know government will take care of their teachers in terms of salary, but private schools are considering laying off their teachers because they could not bear the situation. They are closing. They have closed. And they were giving, some of them were giving 1,000 to their graduate teachers for the month. And now they are tired of that. So what do we do? And if they lay off these teachers, at the end of the day, even if the schools could open again, before they get all these teachers back, the students will still suffer. And I've not seen in the report anything relating to education. I've read the report. Maybe you can correct me if it is there, but I've not seen anything relating to that. What are we doing about that? We need to really take care of those teachers. If the schools are giving them, for example, 1,000, maybe the government can consider giving them another 1,000 to relieve them, to help them to keep up with these difficulties. But if we just leave them like that, they may disappear and go into other areas, which will create more problems for us in the future. Honorable Speaker, the report also, I'm not so whether this special committee, I expect them to meet with the foreign affairs as well, because Gambians are also suffering in some other places. What has come out of that? Because we had the opportunity to meet the foreign affairs, so I expect them to also have some information on that, but they could feed the rest of the plenary. But I've not seen anything there, so maybe they could help us. Honorable Speaker, also, that was a very good initiative, which I see in some places. But my concern is that in the semi-urban areas like Farato and Nemakunku, which I always clamor here, they don't have water, even though pipes are all over around them, but they don't have water. And the NAVEC was putting tanks in some places. And these two places were highlighted, but up to now, there is no tank in those areas. And those people are suffering. So I would have thought that those deprived areas in the semi-urban areas could have been. I followed them until I got tired. And they said they will do it. But if you are in this situation, and then it takes you 45 days before you can get a tank, I don't see how that would help the situation. So I thought that would have been proactive method to really look into those deprived areas and give them, some of these remedies that would have helped. So on that note, I thank you for your time.
Very much, Honorable Member for Ahagie Mbowe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I also want to join my colleagues in telling the committee for a job well done. Within a short period, they are able to produce 2 reports. And today you are here looking at their last report. However, Madam Speaker, I said it here before that the Ministry of Health, by the end of these 45 days, should be able to give us a comprehensive report of our state of affairs from when this virus was discovered in this country to date. This would be able to make us think whether there should be an extension or not. And I think the Ministry of Health, since we have not got that, but this report particularly, I want to talk about of late, 3 days ago, I was listening to it, and the staff at Basse Health Center were saying that the training they had was only for 1 or 2 days, which was not enough for them. It was not even a training per se. It was like a demonstration to them. So I don't know whether the team, when they went to Basse, they were informed about this. Again, on the report, I have not seen that what the PPEs particularly is available or not. Predictions are that in Africa, by June, July, is when we will reach our peak. This is the prediction by scientists. And God forbid, if, for example, our cases has increased, are we able to manage them? Do we have the staff? Do we have the PPEs? I have not seen that in the report too. On the question of this mosque opening, I don't want to delay on this more, because it has already been talked about by previous speakers. However, I want us to be very cautious. You can only pray when you are healthy. You can only pray when you can go to the mosque. But if you are lying at Wencho, you can never be able to pray. I am not saying that we should not open the mosque. I'm not really saying that. But let's be very careful and let's look at the issues properly. If we want to listen to what people are saying, probably those people are looking at their interests. I have a feeling that if praying at home is not allowed by the Quran, it would not have been practiced in any of the Muslim countries, particularly in the Saudi Arabia. So members, please, as Oliver said, let's not be sentimental about this. COVID-19 is real and it is existing. And it has come in this world, it has come and has shown that the entire world was not ready for it. Even the most powerful were not ready for it. We have seen America being the world power, what and how they have suffered, and their state of unpreparedness for this disease. So let's not take it as a joke. And I think we owe it to our people. Those are the people who voted us in here. We need to tell them exactly what this can cost. When we were debating this the first time, I think we had only a few cases, less than 10. Today we are talking of 22. If I'm right, 22, 24. And heaven knows what is going to happen. Nobody prays that it continues. But you have to be on the state of preparedness to ensure that if the worst comes to the worst, you can be able to prevent it. So for the mosque and the churches, I have a feeling probably if by the end of these 21 days, probably, we would have been able to know exactly whether we need to extend or we don't need to extend. By which time, we can be able to open. I just want to appeal to National Assembly members to understand it is not easy nowadays, particularly when the social media is everywhere. Whatever you say, sometimes they misinterpret it. But that does not mean that you shouldn't take the rightful position. Any issue that comes on the table, you give it your right and honest opinion. And then whatever people may say, they can say. But as far as I am concerned, I think the opening of the mosque would be too soon. Because I don't even think the social distancing is allowed in the mosque. I stand to be corrected, but I don't think it's allowed. So if it cannot be allowed there, and you cannot assure people coming into the mosque with mask and hand washing, so please, let's try to inform our people to be careful, and let's wait. I'm sure God would understand with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Jara West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. And I also join my colleagues to thank the members of the Special Select Committee for the hard work they have been doing within this short time and prepared a comprehensive report of this kind for the general membership. Really, you've done a good job within a short time, which of course we are following you in the national media. In this Ramadan, we all know it's very difficult to do certain tasks, even if that is of importance to you. So on that note, I thank you very much for doing what is expected of you. Thank you. Madam Speaker, for me, I think my interventions will be very limited because almost those that I have noted and the concerns I highlighted in the report, most of them has been dealt with already. But notwithstanding, I just want to repeat myself. The first day, the first motion was laid on the table here when the president was requesting for 90 days. The argument that I give that day might be similar to what I will be giving today. I think connecting that to the statement of the minister also in the first day he came here, that all hands should be on deck. We should all join hands and forces together to fight this pandemic before it gets its ugly face in the Gambia. We know there were some gaps that have been indicated during our last debate, and it has come up in the report by the Supreme Islamic Council and the Christian Council, because I've seen it in the report that the committee was told that whenever you are doing anything that has a bearing with religion or maybe that is spiritually affecting people, you need to do consultation. And that was my argument on the first day we laid the motion before the Assembly. There are certain decisions like we are in today, why most of the members are saying that we should free the mosque. We are representing the people. And if we have to be very frank to them, the information we get from them is the same information we have to transmit to the National Assembly members for consideration. If we have to be fair. Of course, we might be sentiment. Of course, that might happen. But under certain circumstances, you have to get a message from your people to give it to your colleagues so that you can make decisions on those messages. I think this is what exactly is happening. People are feeling this program so much. And what we don't understand is the regulation, in fact, is not stopping some of the people from going to the mosque. It is happening. It is happening. Which, in fact, I mean, we are not comfortable with. Because they didn't do any precautions. They don't do any safety measures. They just take their ablution and go into the mosque and pray. So, but whereas we have to put a consideration on it, then we'll be able to put regulation. We'll be able to put measures that can be taken to prevent them. But if we fail to do that, then let us be sure that they are doing it. They are doing their congregational prayers. The funeral services, wherever you attend in the country, you find a lot of people, where in fact social distances are not even observed. I think we have to be very careful whenever we are making decisions, not because we want this or we don't want that. Let's see what is possible, what our people are doing, and make our decision so that it can benefit them. Another thing is, in the report, I found that there was a lack of communication between the agencies that are within the same, fight. The recommendation of the Director General of WHO we all had it anytime at any media, that this needs a global solidarity. And likewise, it needs a national solidarity. Everybody has to be part of it. If from that time, the president made the proclamation, up to the time we've adopted the first 45 days, and up to the time this special select committee has to go into the country and find an information with some ministries that they were not giving the right information or the right equipment, it's a failure. It means something is lacking somewhere. That, I think, by the recommendation of the committee, that collaboration, that connection has to be within all the ministries that are within the exercise. And the other thing is the councils. Somebody talked about it here. The councils need to be considered in this issue, because we all know what the councils were doing from day one up to now, and government needs to help them. In fact, in the recommendations, we see that councils need to be subvented so that they'll be able to do some of the things that they are doing more intensively. And they'll be able to sustain their staffs that are working with them. I've seen that also in the recommendations, and I think that should be looked into as early as possible. The biggest thing is our people did not believe in what we are telling them, whether we like it or not. They had information. It's not because they are not informed, but they didn't believe in it. How do we make them believe? I agree with Honorable Member for Willie. That should be our objective right now as a government. We should do whatever it takes and go back to our people again. We can see the difference in the beginning, how people were accepting hand washing and other things, and what people are accepting right now. We can see the difference. I think we need to go back to our people and make them believe that there is a projection by July. This can reach to this amount. It can reach to this amount. And we can work together and make them believe what we already believe in. They are not believing. Of course, they tell you outright that this is politics. Government is looking for money. And sometimes I think it needs more effort. Let's continue as we started. Honorable Minister of Health, in the beginning, you came here, in fact, appealed to the National Assembly members to join you and do the sensitization, which of course, was accepted by the people. And we see that they're listening to our informations. But along the line, there are other campaigns coming from other side. Believe me, I mentioned this here on the plenary, that if we did not engage people that matters in this issue, they're also going to take their decision. And that might be contrary to our decision. If I, being a National Assembly member, advocating for hand washing, social distances, and I have more than 20 imams in my area that are advising people to go to the mosque, who will get the upper hand? They are community leaders. Whenever we are trying to do anything, we should engage them. We should talk to them so that they can be part of the advocacy. Otherwise, something will be left behind. Madam Speaker, I think my final concern is we have to try and identify certain informations that are going in the social media against this fight that needs to be addressed. If we cannot stop some of the informations that are going against the fight, against the struggle, it's going to be very difficult. Because in every household, people are not interested in what the television is saying anymore. All what people are interested in is what they get from Facebook. As a nation, I think we have to look into that. There are certain informations that are posted in Facebook. We should find a way to either block those informations or go against them. We also comment against them. We should not just leave them and ignore them like that. Look, if I have to talk, then I'll lower myself down. No. Those are informations that many people are relying on. That's where they get their information from. Madam Speaker, with that, I would still, like my colleague said, if this matter can be considered when it comes to congregative prayers, the Muslim Ummah and the Christian Ummah, there are people who are just agitating about it. There are measures that we can put in place where social distances can be observed in some of our religious activities. Of course, in some of them, you might not be able to stand very far away from one another. But then, the whole issue is consultation. That is what has been lacking, and that is exactly what brings all this problem. So, Madam Speaker, with that, I thank you, and I beg to take my seat.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Bakau.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think I have to be very brief since most of the issues have been raised by my colleagues, and normally I don't like to repeat what have been already said by them. First, I would first of all like to thank the Select Committee for a job well done. Well, I have no problem with the report, but I have one main concern that I want to raise to the mover of the motion. That is, since we all know that the pandemic is existing and the public is not adhered to the regulations, so I want to put it to the mover of the report that since the public is not adhering to the regulations, why the need for an extension of 21 days? I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Kiang West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. May I join my colleagues to thank the Select Committee for the job well done. Madam Speaker, this is a concern that involves everybody. My main concern here are three. Social distancing. Madam Speaker, this is a problem. To solve it will be a serious problem, as alluded by many speakers. Our social setup at our homes, our movement and everything cannot be separated as we wanted it to be. So I, for one, I would urge the committee to come up with another recommendation so that at least Friday congregations at the mosque and church and Sundays at the churches can have a room at least so that they can practice their religious affairs. Madam Speaker, concerning transport, I said it here last time. I think I am the only unlucky MP here. Madam Speaker, my constituency is very remote that I don't have any correct route that transport can fly from my constituency to here. As I speak now, in my constituency, drivers are charging double fares. If they are paying individual $400, now they are paying $200. A basket full of potato or okra used to be $50, now it is $100. With all the hard work that our women are doing now is going in vain. Because here now we are at the harvest time. After harvesting all their garden products, bring it here, it's another problem. So they all perish. So there, Madam Speaker, I think the committee should also come with a recommendation to see what possibilities, despite there's a serious reduction of fuel price, but this does not affect people in their affairs. Again, school students, I said last time, answered by Honorable Busumbala. We had a meeting with the minister last time. I'm member of the executive, member of the education committee. I asked her about this situation. People in my area are not benefiting from this distance learning. And people here are doing it. And they are all going to the same exam. I wonder, grade 12 exam is just at the corner, and grade 9. What is going to be the fate of those students? It is unfortunate that this does not reflect in the report of the select committee. But I hope Honorable Mbowe is the deputy chair of the education committee. He would know how to address that issue. Madam Speaker, with that remark, I think all the areas have been talked by the press speakers. I beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Central Badibu.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I would like to thank the Select Committee for the job done. Madam Speaker, if you look at the mandate of the committee was established to monitor the implementation of the state of public emergency. But by looking at the report, I can say a lot has been left behind as far as the implementation is concerned. Madam Speaker, if you look into the report, the mover made mention of health precautions cannot be effectively followed as required due to hunger and poverty. I don't know what he means by this. If you can buttress on this point what the people that they interviewed, what they have said about this hunger and poverty, if you can throw more light into that. Because, Madam Speaker, I believe with the implementation of the Act, and we expected a lot to be done on the ground. And we expected you to inform us so that we can make an informed decision here. But by looking at the transportation, we all know that it's a challenge in this country. And you haven't given us any information as how people were suffering during this period of the 45 days, and what do you think Assembly should do as far as that one is concerned? Madam Speaker, coming to, in the report also, it was made mention that some of the health facilities, like Basse, for example, they didn't have a thermometer. I don't know whether it's an infrared thermometer or a thermometer gun, and which I believe these tools should be available, if not in all health facilities, but the major facilities like Basse, they should have these facilities in place. Because we made these laws for us to be safe from COVID-19. But we don't make these laws to be lying there and when they are not adhered to. So what is the essence of government spending money on us to be coming here? Because these extraordinary sessions are very expensive to be sponsored. So once we come here, we make regulations we make laws, I think we should be with the same line with the executive in terms of implementation. So, but we have seen, the report shows to read that there is a big gap when it comes to implementation. Almost all the recommendations that we made here, there is lacuna in the implementation. And how do you expect us to come and make another decision without getting the feedbacks? It will be very difficult. Madam Speaker, coming to the markets, somebody made mention of it. At least there's flexibility in the markets in the urban areas. But in the rural Gambia, the markets that women can sell their vegetables are the lumos. Did you have an opportunity to go and meet those women in the lumos or in their various communities to hear their constraints? I don't know whether it was limited time, but I believe you should have done that engagement. That will help us also to make a decision as far as the markets are concerned. Because those women, they have perishable vegetables with them. And they spend a lot. Their energy, the money that they spend. So at the end of the day, they have to throw it away. Because they cannot have good markets for it and they cannot consume all. Madam Speaker, coming to the collaboration between the central government and the local governments, like the councils. In your tour also, did you engage the councils to know, the steps that they have taken? Please, you can respond. I don't need your fingers. Did you consult the councils to know how much engagement have they done when it comes to implementation? Because we expect the councils also to play a role in the decongestion of the markets. So we need to see that in the report. Not only for them to complain of what they are losing in the lumos, fine. But what have they done also? As a collaborative mechanism to see to it that places are identified in their council areas, so that they would not, women or people will not be, converged at one place. Then the purpose of the social distance is defeated. Madam Speaker, the police, in the report also, it has been highlighted that the PPEs we are not available in certain security points. So these are the things that I think if you want us to work well, the security sector needs to be well equipped. So we need to know what is the problem. Is it that the security cannot be allocated with funds? So if there's a funding problem, Assembly need to know. So that the decision that we are going to make, we can ensure that the funds are available for relevant institutions to operate. We haven't seen that in the report. And I think that is very key. Before we come to make a resolution on the extension of 21 days, I think the regulations need to be, we have to make a thorough assessment. We have to make a thorough assessment and see the 45 days that we have, that we have granted here in this parliament. How effective was the 45 days? Before we go in for 21 days or 45 days, we need to have a thorough knowledge. So I believe that the committee was quick to make a recommendation by forgetting some of the key things that this assembly need to be, updated on. We need updates. But we cannot just say that we go in for 21 days when we don't actually know, the progress of the previous 45 days. We need to be well informed. Madam Speaker, coming to the food package, I expect that, in their tour also, they could have used it as an opportunity to see, whether the average Gambians are ready to stay indoors, whether the food is available or not. Because we need to get the information. Once people don't have food in their houses, it will be very difficult to respect the laws. It will be very difficult for them to adhere to the rules and regulations. So this information will also help the National Assembly to see to it that, whether there is a dire need for extension or not. Yes, you make the religious leaders, the Islamic Supreme Council and the Christian Council, but during your tour in the rural Gambia, did you consult the imams? Do you have an opportunity to visit a village and seek the opinion of the religious leaders? We should know that, because as other colleagues said, the imams, the people that we are representing, we are their mouthpiece and we must represent them here in this house. But I will reserve that portion until the Justice Minister comes up. Then I will have my message from my constituency. What is their take? Because I'm their mouthpiece, I'm going to speak on their behalf here. It's not about sentiment. It's not about my individual decision. It was a decision that I made with them. So it must be presented here. That's my contribution.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I also want to join my colleagues to thank the Special Select Committee for a job well done. And I think they've done a lot of good job looking at the climatic condition in CRR and URR. And for some of them who that's their first time to be in that part of the country, had been a big struggle for all of them. We want to thank them for the work that they have done. And I think this is why we set up the committee. My presentation is going to be very brief, and I'm going to come back again to the issue of communication in this country. Communication in this country is a problem because people to other communities or other people that they are representing. So it's always a problem. GRTS, it is about time, let them look at their programs, overhaul all their programs and focus on COVID-19. If that is not done, all the laws that we are going to pass here will not be implemented because the information is not reaching the people. They are just talking to themselves in the studios, and the average Gambians are not getting what they are saying. The people in URL who are Sarawale speaking or Fula or whatever, all the news that they are saying are not being very clear to them. So I think the issue of language is something that we need to look at. And I want to commend QTV for the initiative that they have taken every hour before they come with the national news. All their program heads will come and present the latest information in the language that they are fluent in, so that the average Gambian knows the status of COVID-19 in this country. If our national broadcaster is not doing that, where is the taxpayers' money going to? And I don't know the Honorable Minister who is overseeing the Ministry of Information. We wanted Director General to sit with these ministries and come out with a plan that will send the right message to the Gambian people so that we are able to contain this virus, which is very deadly. The reason why people are reluctant because they are not being given enough information as far as the status quo of the WHO procedures and also all the advices that they are saying. And we need to give them facts, information, and figures. We cannot just be narrating stories, but we need to give them figures. Like if we go to our report, the report of the Select Committee, where they gave us some statistical information, I think that is very key. Those are issues that need to be hammered rightly, where they said from expert, let me just use that one here. From expert information, about 181,000 people are going to be affected in this small country of ours. That information needs to be very clear to the Gambian people. And they went further to look at the programs or the problems that they may face when this thing happens, because the hospital beds are not very, to help those people. And they went further to tell us that 5% of that 181,000 people are likely to die. That is very close to something like, if mathematics serve me right, will be something like 9,000 people. And if it can increase and it's more than that, how many people are going to die? So these are things that we need to look at as a country, and let us improve our communication systems to reach to the people.
There are other issues that I also want to look at. When you look at the coordination and also the report of the various committees, like some of the health posts, if you go to the one in the health post where you have these porous borders, they are saying that they still do not have the PPEs, and it is making life very difficult. But also, when we need to explain to the people what does it take to close the borders. It is not just the borders are closed, but you can allow other people to come in, and you don't allow other people to come in. Because that is the problem. Some people are still entering the country when the borders are closed. And for those of us who live around the coastal areas, all the boats are coming overnight. So where are the security personnel? And they are talking of mobility transport problem. I have said it here when we were laying the bill. Let us give the government vehicles to these security people to do their work. Workforce in all the departments had already been reduced. Those vehicles are there, they are government vehicles. They should not be staying in people's home. Let them give the vehicles to the security personnel to do their work. Until that is done, whatever law we pass here, people are not going to adhere to it. Because we live from hand to mouth, and the vulnerability of our people are so high that we need to be able to focus on the situation so that our people can be well served in whatever we are going to do. So I think this is a learning point for all of us. 45 days had gone, and not much has happened. And we are thinking of extending it again for another 21 days. We need to remember that the Gambia is a farming community. We are getting into the rainy season. The farmers are going to prepare their farms. What is going to be the implication on the farmers, on their seeds, and also the farming equipment that they need to do? And these are issues that we need to take into consideration. And I think the most vulnerable members of our communities is the women folk who were engaged in vegetable gardening over the last 6 months of the year, from November to round, and it is harvesting time. Where are they going to sell their produce? These are issues, that's why we said it is not only the responsibility of Ministry of Health and Justice to fight this pandemic. The Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Agriculture, Environment and Natural Resources should have daily programs and give information to Gambians on the status that is affecting their ministries, so that people are better placed and be able to plan themselves. In that way, they will be able to move forward. But if that is not done, and it is only limited to the Ministry of Health and Justice, where we have these regulations that are not fully implemented. So coming back to the issue of sensitization, I think that needs to be done. And I've also said that we need to use our traditional communicators in the villages. Let's give them vehicles to go around the communities on a daily basis and talk to people in the markets, talk to people in their households, talk to people in the communities, so that we avoid all communities. Until that is not done, it is going to be very difficult for all these regulations that we are going to pass here. And I think there are so many other issues that I will need to go to, but I will reserve that until when the minister comes to lay the proposed motion that he wants us to do, and all those things will be highlighted. On that note, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the time. Honorable Minority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. Let me also join my colleague to thank the committee for a job well done. Honorable Speaker, before I go into detail, I have a question to ask to my colleagues. My colleagues, something new is within our sitting today? I would answer the question myself. That is, everybody is wearing a mask. You have sanitizer. Then you have tissue papers. Yeah, but I have mine. So, Honorable Speaker, that simply tells us, actually, there is something happening in the whole world. Because that is why, it's because some precaution, some safety precaution. This is why we have all these things in our disposal. And then the Honorable Member for Woodley West have mentioned it here. The issue of this coronavirus is an enemy that none of us can see, you can't touch it, you cannot actually know how to defend yourself against this enemy. But there are some certain guidelines that the World Health Organization allow us to do, at least to prevent ourselves from this pandemic. And in fact, it is creating more problems, Honorable Speaker. Now people are even refusing to go to the hospital to take treatment for certain ailments. That means that it is not only the impact of coronavirus, but the other issues also. People have the belief, if I go to the hospital, they will diagnose me straight away. I have to call coronavirus. So it is creating another problem. You might have certain ailment that is different from COVID-19, you sit down at home. So it is creating another health implication within our society. And then I think we need to be very careful on this COVID-19. On the enforcement, you see, when such things happen, other people also use it to earn living out of it. Because most of these people who are entering this country, they are smuggled by people. They are this motorbike. They smuggle them to earn their own living. And actually, the criminal always think ahead of the police. So, and then the immigration is definitely doing very well. Because if you monitor news, you see them impounding a lot of motorbikes. And they use these motorbikes to be smuggling people. So the immigration, definitely, they are doing a very good job. My only concern is you see them, they are not with what they call PPP, protective gears. And then I think the Ministry of Health should liaise with the Ministry of Interior to make sure that, because they are meeting these people directly before they enter the country. So they need to be actually protected. Honorable Speaker, with the issue of the recommendation of the committee for 21 days, I think, as I mentioned earlier on, the world is living in a very terrible situation. It is not our wish to restrict our own people we represent, even a minute. It is not up to the executive to restrict the movement of their people or to put them into a lockdown, even a minute. It is not our wish. This is something that is happening in the whole world. If the entire world now is running and then Gambia say will not run, it's going to be a problem. And then I think we as legislature, last time when my intervention, that's what I started for. Our own people, whatever regulation we are passing here, is to make sure that our own people are prevented from this coronavirus. It is not actually our wish. So, Honorable Speaker, I just have a question. Maybe the mover might not be in the position to answer it, but since we have the executive here, I think they can help us. Because last time when the FPAC met, with regard of this material bought in Turkey, that are actually bought for the fight of this COVID-19. So I don't know whether until now, these equipment are in town. If they are not in town, what is the problem that is actually hindering their coming? Because last time when we met, they were not in town. And actually you spend almost $10 million on equipment to fight a pandemic like this one. You buy the equipment, they are stored, they cannot come, so that the public can utilize them. I don't think it is really a good thing. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the resolution, they are telling us there is more cases in Senegal. A situation where Senegal, the cases in Senegal is increasing. That means that Gambia, we are in a problem. Very serious problem. Looking at the geographical location of these two sister countries, we are entirely embedded within the midst of Senegal. So if Senegal is registering more cases, and I am even made to understand they are even losing now, relaxing, that is very serious. It's definitely our country. We are in a danger if Senegal should be in the position of relaxing. In this country, you go to certain villages, almost they say at the same border. One village, one half Senegal, one half Gambia. So if Senegal is relaxing or losing their measures, then definitely we are seriously vulnerable, our country. And then I think a lot of effort needs to be done then. Since Senegal now is relaxing, there should be a lot of enforcement put on our borders. I know it is difficult because there are some people, as the member for Willie said, even when they close their eyes, they can manage to sneak in Senegal, into Gambia from Senegal or Gambia from Senegal. But then, since Senegal is relaxing, let's try and enforce our borders. If we look at our almost all the cases registered in this country, many of them are imported cases, either from Senegal or somewhere else, and mostly Senegal. Therefore, I will still now emphasize the Ministry of Interior and the Immigration Department to be given the necessary equipment to make sure that our borders are sealed. Nobody comes in, nobody goes out until we see a way out for this pandemic, because this one nobody can predict when it is ending. We don't know. So really, my colleagues, we are living in an unforeseen situation, or we are living in an abnormal situation. Where you are living in an abnormal situation, therefore, there are certain things, they cannot be normal. We must admit that. We are living in an abnormal situation. Then therefore, we expect a lot of abnormalities. Honorable Speaker, on that note, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable Member for Jimara.
Thank you very much, Madam. Madam Speaker, for the past 45 days, the people of URR have been suffering, like what the Honorable Member for Sandu said. We all know very well that URR, we are depending only in one market, that's the Basse market. And the market sometimes back was on fire. And most of the businessmen, almost 80% of those who were at that market were depending on the local lumos. But then I have gone through the report. I never see anything that they talk about the reopening of the local lumos in the region, or in fact in the whole country. And I think it is important for us to put that recommendation in the paper so that the lumos will be open. And I'm sure if it is not done, then the people of URA will soon start to migrate to Combo so that they will start their business. On the other issue, which I wanted to talk about, that's the security. When you go to page 34, number 5, where they are talking about vehicles that should be, or the ministry should be equipped with vehicles. I think, I'm not sure whether the government will get that money to buy vehicles. But then I'm just proposing, why not they do the way when the person is going for a tour? Let them allocate a security officer at the border or at the Denton Bridge. Any government vehicle that comes, let them park it and give it to the security. Let them do whatever they want to do with that vehicle. But if they are saying that vehicles should be allocated to the ministry, while if the person is on a tour, you see them parking hundreds of vehicles. But I think this COVID-19 is more important than the present tour. And the government is not willing to buy any vehicle. Let them ask the security officer at the Denton Bridge to start parking government vehicles. Because most of the government vehicles are not doing nothing. In fact, you see them at night, idling without doing nothing. So let them give those vehicles to the ministry and the Ministry of Interior. Let them do whatever they want to do with those vehicles. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Nyamina East.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me begin by felicitating or thanking the committee for their magnanimous effort that they have done within the period. It was never easy with them. In fact, during the month of Ramadan, having the committee members moving across the country just to ensure that things are in order. So we definitely want to thank them for that. Honorable Speaker, the entire world, I would say, we are not ignorant of the fact that the pandemic, COVID-19, is definitely affecting every individual in the world in one way or the other. And individual states, individual people are doing whatsoever that they could within their capacity to ensure that they either prevent themselves, contain, or to bring down COVID-19, I will call it. And Gambia is not an exception as long as this fight is concerned. But the enemy before us, the battle before us, as the Right Honorable said, fighting something that you cannot actually view, fighting something that you cannot actually handle or hold, or that you cannot actually know where it is located is very difficult. And as a result of that, I will continue emphasizing that there is need for unity. Together, we can fight COVID-19. I have that belief. I hold the view that together, we can utilize our resources and fight COVID-19. Together, unity, we can definitely utilize our intelligence in order to fight COVID-19. And in as much as we are trying to portray, we are trying to realize our individual differences, then we might go back to the dark ages, and that will not actually help this country in terms of the fight. And we must be very cognizant of that fact. Honorable Speaker, laws, policies, regulations are not just made to be quoted, but they are meant to address a situation. They are meant to be implemented. Not just to be implemented, but to realize at the end of the day there is a progress. And that is why we are making laws in this country. That is why we are making policies in this country. And that is why we are coming up with regulations in this country. So I think the implementation part of it is very important. And if we are implementing this, at the end of the day, let us try to address a situation. And in this situation, we are addressing COVID-19. This is what we want to either prevent, curtail, or we want to bring down as long as the fight is concerned. So we must be very cognizant of that fact. Honorable Speaker, in this country, we only mean to have these laws, this policy and regulations just to keep them for record purpose. But in terms of practice, in terms of implementation, we find it very challenging to have all these laws, all these regulations, all these policies implemented right on the direction that we want to have them implemented. So this is not a new thing in this country. And in fact, I would say at Africa at large. We had the problem of implementation. And with that, Honorable Speaker, you will realize that we are very serious on making these policies and programs. But are we really serious in terms of the implementation? Could you imagine? The mover of the motion did indicate to us that after the motion was passed, tabled and passed by the Attorney General, the agencies or the authorities that are there to implement, that are there to enforce those policies, programs, or whatever you call it, we are asking or we are waiting for the Attorney General to submit that regulation. I think that is what the mover of the motion did indicate earlier. And I don't think something that we are all committed to fight. I don't expect you as an individual or an authority responsible to implement something that has already been made as law for someone to provide such document for you. in order for you to start what you are supposed to do. That is just not what we were expecting from these authorities. The Ministry of Justice, they did what actually they should have done. That is to ensure that to defend what they have tabled before the National Assembly. And I was expecting the same thing because they are all aware, all the ministries. When the Attorney General was here at the table, that motion, they should have been here. And not to complain that we were not served with the document or with the regulation in order to implement. That is not a seriousness, I will call it. And we are not serious about it then, if that is the case. Honorable Speaker, the reason why we narrowed down the 3 months that the central government was requesting to 45 days was to ensure that at the end of the day, we will be able to ascertain the progress, the achievements, or the level in which we are trying to handle COVID-19. But from what we have experienced, I don't have to be told in order to believe what is actually happening within the Gambian setup. And honestly speaking, with all the regulations that are made, we are not definitely adhering to all these things that we are encountering in this country. And that is as a result for the committee, the National Assembly, to come up with a special committee that will be there to monitor, to ensure that all these things that are in place are, at the end of the day, implemented. And that is why the committee is here to report. But, Honorable Speaker, honestly speaking, if we are to tell each other the truth in this assembly, because as the Right Honorable said, the hope of this nation rests entirely in this National Assembly. And we must stand to defend that. We must stand to protect the people that we are representing and not in any way trying to cheat those individuals. And we can only do this if we are really committed to what we have to do. We can only do this if we are ready to sacrifice for our people, especially the most vulnerable people. Honorable Speaker, internationally, we do agree that the recommendations given by WHO are some of the things in which one can prevent oneself. And in the Gambia, funnily enough, public gathering anywhere, we have seen it as before. And we talk of the transport, public transport. We recommended here that at least they should curtail it down. Half passengers of the vehicles should enter in one vehicle. But that is not the case. And even whereas that is the case, then our people are suffering for paying double fare. Some of the members did emphasize that here. So meaning they are suffering. Honorable Speaker, you talk about the quarantine that was actually taking place for some of the people who came into the country not long ago. After they were released, stayed with their family for some time. At the end of the day, they claimed that those people that they are infected and their family members were left there, not isolated. Where is the seriousness we are talking about in this? And how are we sure that their family members are not infected with the disease? In as much as we claim that the disease can transmit from one individual to the other. Honorable Speaker, these are some of the things that we must consider along the line. And the committee, I am pleased with the report, but I am surprised because looking at it, when we were setting up this committee, there were some terms of reference. There were some recommendations from the Human Rights and Constitutional Matters Committee. There were some recommendations from the Health Committee that accompany the responsibilities of the committee. That's the special committee. And one of those, if I could remember so briefly, that is all the funds that are coming in the name of COVID-19 must be properly scrutinized, must be properly examined, must be properly monitored. And if I could see what actually is given in the report, there is nothing as such. The minister has been telling us this, that WHO, World Bank, and other institutions, World Food Program, and other institutions or development partners, they have been coming up with certain things in order to help us fight COVID-19. But I was expecting the committee at the end of the day to tell us how much is coming from World Bank in their report, how much is coming from how much is coming from World Food Program? And in detail, the committee, I was expecting for them to explain to us how much of those monies are already spent and how much is the balance, and even the balance, how do they intend to spend the remaining or the balance? This is what I was expecting from the committee. But nowhere in the report, I have not seen this. And the concern of the general public is this. All these monies we are talking about, I was expecting, I could remember being approached for so many times, that where is this money coming from? How is this money spent? What is the balance? I cannot answer the question for the simple fact that I have agreed to establish a committee to go and do that assignment for me. So I was expecting today, the assignment that I have given to the committee, they will report back to me or give me update as for the resources or the monies that are coming into this country. But nowhere in the report. Do not tell me the money is yet to be spent or some part of the money is already spent. This is exactly what I want to know. But the committee, they are not coming with that. So it's a challenge. And I find it very difficult at the end of the day, as soon as I leave this house, to explain to my people that the rice that you are consuming at the end of the day is coming from budget A, B, or C. Or the rice that you will be consuming at the end of the day is a support from World Bank. I cannot tell. Where is this, in fact, price coming from? I don't know. And I was expecting this from the committee, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the schools, of course, it does not matter how much we make emphasis on certain things. And I believe the more emphasis we make on particular issues, I think the more the authorities responsible should take note of that and become serious about it. So to me, the emphasis does not matter. Here I am saying, day before the initiative started, that is this learning program that is ongoing on the TV and the radio, Honorable Speaker, I make it very clear on the TV. I was invited to discuss on this. And I make it very clear that the people in the provinces will not benefit as expected in this program. And the other problem that I have there, we cannot be having this program at the end of the day, and the people, in fact, who have access to TV, radio, cannot have a clear understanding of what they are listening to. And if they have doubt of what they are listening to, where will they go to and make clarification on such? These are some of the things that we must consider. A greater number of the people in the provinces, CRR, URR, and so, just to name a few, they are not benefiting or they are not realizing the program that is ongoing on the TV and the radio. And as a result, if schools are to be open tomorrow, teachers or the ministry will claim that what we have covered already, they are not to go back on that. What about my children? What about my sons and daughters who are there and didn't have access to this, didn't benefit from this teaching or learning? It's a challenge. And going back to those things that are already treated on the TV and the radio, meaning it's a waste of resources. I will calculate it that way. Meaning the resources that you have already spent is not realized by the beneficiaries. This is what you are telling me in simple terms. So I will advise, let the ministry, in collaboration with whatsoever authority, let them go back and revisit this plan or this initiative. Because a greater number of the people in this country are affected and they are not realizing the benefit of this. Most especially the people that I represent, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, just to conclude, the 21 days, yes, we can extend to whatsoever level in as much as we have the capacity, we have the financial motions, and we are committed to ensure that at the end of the day, whatever that is approved or put before the table, we are there to implement it. There is no problem. But take it a historical journey, and what we have already realized in this country, what we have already observed, what we have already seen, and the authorities and the people responsible behaving in terms of this, I am not convinced. Even with 2 days, even with 3 months, whatsoever period, it will help. Because we are increasing, going into a state of public emergency. At the end of the day, we have a number of cases coming in, again, more and more. And we have seen all these regulations are abundant there. We are not implementing them. So I have the problem of increasing this to 21 days and the regulations are not implemented. That's the problem I have. And I cannot keep on increasing this period after period. My people continue suffering out there. Because imagine, famine is coming. Most of my people are farmers. Most of my people, the little that they can have is from the Lumo that they are going to. And Lumos are closed. But could you imagine in the combos or in the urban area, the markets that we are seeing here, the way they are congested, Honorable Speaker, to be fair enough, the Lumos in the provinces are not congested in that nature. That's the reality. So with me, I am with the belief. I am not supporting any move. I am not supporting anything that is there to increase the transmission of COVID-19. That is not my point. But my point is, if we have the belief that experts, if they are telling us we can open markets in the urban area for a number of period or time, then I also have the belief that, or I hold the view that the Lumos in the provinces can also be opened, considering the time. Honorable Speaker, so I think there is need for us to calculate this. And most of my farmers, some of them, they have already sold their cattle. Some of them, they have already sold the horse that they have. Some of them, even the machines, the small equipment that they have, that they are going to use for farming. Some of them, they have already sold the seed that they have. What do we expect? And in fact, where is the agriculture minister to tell us what actually, in case farmers suffer in terms of these areas, what is there to help the farmers out there? So these are some of the things that we must consider. Honorable Speaker, that is what I have to say. Let us forget about our individual differences, and together we utilize our resources, intelligence, and whatever that we have within our capacity in order to fight COVID-19 is real. Thank you.
Member for Banjul South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think I'm not going to be long because I'm expecting the Honorable Minister to lay the request for the state of the emergency. So I think most of my contribution will be reserved for that. But Madam Speaker, I just want to bring this to the attention of the chair of the special committee. We gave them a task. We said establish this committee according to Standing Order 95 to look into the recommendations of the establishment of the approval of the state of the emergency 45 days ago. And going to the report of the Standing Committee of the Human Rights and Constitutional Matters on that day, we had 5 recommendations. I think the fourth one especially was that the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs and the relevant line ministries, example, the health, trade, tourism, etc., to work with the Attorney General and Minister for Justice to come up with a compensatory mechanism to provide relief packages and to the most vulnerable during the times of restriction. I think, Madam Speaker, I will call the attention of this August Assembly to that specific recommendation. And this report should have basically worked on that. The government was given 45 days to come up with specific package of relief, whether it was to the poor, whether it was to business community, and we are yet to see that. Like I always say, I am always in the interest of a state of emergency when it comes to the time of need. We can even have a complete lockdown. I wouldn't mind approving today a 45-day state of emergency or whatever the Attorney General would be requesting. But based on this report, they were given 45 days to look into all that. But as I'm to see, there is no such thing. They are still coming with more recommendations. And it looks like nothing of that sort has been done. For example, when you go to page 6, it says that the ministry revealed that the Gambia Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with the UNDP, is currently cleaning up the data it has on the number of households in the country in order to ascertain the vulnerable families. Have they ascertained the number of vulnerable families? What we have seen is stack of food stock at the McCarthy Square, and apparently it is being distributed in the regions. Do we know who they will be supplied to? Do we know the number of vulnerable people in this country? Do we know how long the government can continue feeding them? Because we don't know how long this COVID-19 is going to last. It can last a day, it can last a week. So what I was expecting from this report basically is to tell us that these are the number of vulnerable people, this is the amount we will need to feed them every month, and if this pandemic goes on, this is how much we are going to need per month, and henceforth, probably per year. That is what I was expecting from this report, first of all. And also, they acknowledged that the committee acknowledged that the ministry, particularly that of finance, has not come up with a concrete compensatory plan. And they've also mentioned that it is not only people that will be affected, businesses also will be affected. So, Madam Speaker, in as much as I want to approve a state of emergency, in fact, I would not even go for the 21 days. I would wait for what the minister would have to say, and then we'll see how long we can also, because we've seen Senegal. Yesterday, they have additional 123 cases on top of that, and now they have gone over to 1,000. Fortunately for us, we've only just got 23. But like I always say, we are not even sure whether it is only 23 because we are not testing. In as much as we want to know, we are not testing everybody. The testing is not open to everybody. Sometimes you can call them within an hour, they will come and test you. Sometimes you can call them 3 days, 4 days, they will not come. So for me, I would say that everybody is affected. Let us just assume that we are all affected. Let us assume that we all need to be isolated. So for me, as I said, I will not say much, but I was expecting this committee to work on the report that was adopted on the 3rd, work on those recommendations, and also look at what the executive have in preparation based on those recommendations, and come up with a complete report and a complete recommendation. Not just only come up with recommending 21 days. 21 days for what? 21 days on what basis? COVID-19 can go on for 10 years. It can go on for 2 years. But we can lock down for 21 days, but on what grounds? We said the markets are closed. Are they closed? No. They are still open. Yesterday, I personally went to the market. I didn't get off my car because I was afraid. I was scared. They were not respecting social distancing. So are we going to say that we are going to have a state of emergency for another 21 days and not adhere to the regulations? Because the regulations are not really concrete. Even the minister cannot tell you what the regulations apply, because probably they just came up with writing. It is just on black and white. It cannot be implemented. If you say stay at home and not feed me, they have stocks of rice for the past 2 weeks. Are people receiving it? No. Who is receiving it? I don't know. That is what I wanted to know. We wanted to know facts and figures, not only say we are going to approve, we are not going to approve. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Please, I will take one more, please, your microphone. Thank you. I will take one more intervention before we go on break, because I've been sitting for almost 4.5 hours. Thank you. Honorable Member for Upper Fuladu, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thought I would come in the tail end because I am part of the committee. Yeah, I'm part of the committee.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Madam Speaker, I want to join my colleagues to thank the Special Committee, the Select Committee on COVID-19 for the wonderful job they have done during the past few weeks in their engagement on a fact-finding mission in government ministries, departments, agencies, and other relevant institutions in all the regions of the country. pertaining to the COVID-19 pandemic. Madam Speaker, the report of the committee is very comprehensive and explicit, and I am in support of the report. Madam Speaker, I have one or two concerns to raise for the committee to take up, and that is the health workers on the ground with their support staff need to be motivated in terms of paying their allowances in time, especially the frontline workers who have taken the risk as far as the COVID-19 is concerned. Madam Speaker, if you read through the report, you will find out that some health workers are paid allowances whilst others are not, which I think is not a fair game, and the government should look into that. Madam Speaker, these health workers need to be empowered by providing them adequate equipment so that they can do their work more effectively and efficiently, as expected. Secondly, Madam Speaker, I want to emphasize that the committee should not stop at only producing good report, but also to make follow-up so that recommendations highlighted in the report are fully implemented to address the current situation of COVID-19 in the country. Thank you very much.
So far, 19 interventions, but thinking aloud, let me just round it to 20, and I will allow Honorable Member for Nyani, provided it's not going to take long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I also want to join my colleagues to congratulate the Special Select Committee for this COVID-19. Madam Speaker, I had all the deliberation of all the speakers who have said before me. At times, if anybody spoke, I thought that guy is the person who have said all. But I think what is left now is we can all decide and see what's supposed to be done so that we can forge ahead. Madam Speaker, I just want to go straight to the Special Select Committee during their tour. Thank God they have reached to my area, which is Kundal Health Center, and they have met the staff on the ground. I used to talk much about water problem in my border area, and thank God they themselves found that it's a problem like Amdalai village. This village has a problem of getting water, and they cannot get water anywhere other than in Senegal. So now it's a problem to them. At times they deny them not to fetch water from their village. So I think this problem should be addressed due to this finding by the committee. Secondly, on the side of the vegetable which have been cultivated by the farmers, and I learned some of my areas and some areas, the agricultural department have been informing others who are having their produce like onion with them so that they can able to buy it from them because they don't have anywhere to sell their produce. So I think this I didn't see it in the report. Maybe they didn't make those findings or they didn't have that information, but I'm putting it to the committee that it's a major challenge on some of the farmers who have already been getting their onions with them and they are not being sold. So I think government should be very considered so that their produce can be bought from them. The other important thing also, as far as I'm an agriculturalist. I have seen a report here which is very impressive and very alarming, and I think the whole assembly should support that person. That is, the Select Committee went to Pachar-N, and they found a farmer called Wan Musa Dabo, and the farm enterprise is Maro Farm. This Maro Farm, according to the report, can able to produce 13 tons per hectare. Before, other farmers, they can only produce 2.5, 3. At most 5. So if you can see, if this particular farmer can able to produce 13 tons per hectare for 2.5 months, basically, at the end of the day, according to the report, they said it is 1,480 hectares in that area. On my calculation, you can find it out, 1,480 hectares by 13 tons will give you 19,240 metric tons. So basically, if we could able to assist this particular farmer, I think it will be useful for us, and it will be a self-food sufficiency, because based on his demand also, the committee should at least follow it up, and all the members can follow it up based on his request of what he wants from the government. That is about $20 million on free loans, which he could able to buy the following. It is on the report. So we can just go through the report, which he stated that as a farmer, $5 million to support farmers with their inputs, like seeds. The other $5 million would be used for building the storage facilities. So basically, I think this thing, as we, the Agricultural Committee, will also make it a follow-up with other members so that we can able to see how best we can able to help this particular farmer, Mr. Dabo. So the second point also is in the report, as far as the health is concerned, the Wanyani, according to their report, have also distributed almost about 1,000 masks, but they didn't stop on that. They have distributed some buckets and even some drugs from our Wanyani who are in the diaspora with the help of we who are here, because I was part of the presentation when they were giving it to the health staff in Kuntao. So I think a lot have been said. At one time, I said one scenario here, which is about the glove. So, but this thing also is happening, like we are saying our mosque. We must prevent ourselves. We are washing our hands, not to touch our nose and mouth. But praying also is directly on the ground. And this virus can stay on the mat for some hours. So going praying directly on the mat without using or protecting mask, that's direct inhalation of going inside your nose or your mouth. So, but whatever, we only pray for Allah, for us to be protected. So on that note, Madam Speaker, my concern is about the produce which are with the farmers, so that we can able to make sure that those produce are being bought from them as soon as possible. If not, they will all perish. On the side of sensitization is very important. I think it was very effective when the assembly members went to their various constituencies, and the communities really received us well. We sensitized them, but I think it should be continued so that people will be aware of this pandemic. And secondly, like the majority have said, for the information is about people to hear the information and to reach to the receivers. But I think what we can say is about to thank maybe QTV and Q Radio, because that one is covering the whole country. So, but the government also should try to make sure that the our national radio and TV to reach to all the communities. So on that note, Madam Speaker, I take my seat.
To take a break. We've been sitting for almost 4.5 hours. So we'll take an hour's break and come back at 3:15. Agreed? So we suspend this sitting till 3:15. Thank you.
Yes, how are you?